Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Tuesday, May 25th Board of Selectmen's meeting. Mike, if you can lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, so first up, we have citizens input. Do we have anything, Christina? No? Okay. Nothing for citizens input, but I did want to mention that this is probably the last week due to the governor's guidance that we'll have to limit attendees in person, wear masks if you're vaccinated. So while we'll keep the option here to email in citizens input for the near future, just in case people aren't coming in, we'll probably open it up to in-person citizens input starting next week as well, just so people know. All right, so 7:05, we have the COVID-19 informational update, Bill.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So we have some good news to report that the town of Foxborough has actually gone back into green. We currently have we've averaged over the past 2 weeks 8.2 cases per 10,000 or 100,000 Foxborough residents. So as of 5/20/21, we actually went back into the green. So that's really, really good news. And the good news also is that we're really surrounded by green for the most part. All the communities around us have actually gone into that same category as well. So it's really good to be able to report that. As far as vaccinations go, there's a pretty detailed report on that, which I'm going to forego reading tonight, but I can actually, we'll maybe put this up on the website if maybe on Matt Brennan's website as well as the town's website to kind of just give people an update on what's happening with that. And it's actually, the vaccinations in Massachusetts are going very, very well. And that sort of leads into my next announcement, and that is Governor Baker has made several announcements during the past few days indicating that May 29th will be the official reopening of Massachusetts, in which we will no longer be required to wear masks. And that if you're vaccinated, there'll be no issue at all. We do encourage people to wear masks, of course, if you're not vaccinated, because obviously we still want to make sure that people stay safe. State of emergency will end on June 15th, which in itself is great news, but also creates a little bit of complications, several complications in terms of how things have rolled out for the past year and a half. So we noted that to the governor and to the legislature that it does create some problems for us operationally because there's been changes to the open meeting law to allow for remote access meetings. So there is language in a bill that he just filed as of today, indicating that he's proposing that the remote access requirements stay in place until September 1st. He's also noted that a lot of people have had the outdoor dining requirements. He's actually pushing to see if that will stay in place until November 29th. So all the outdoor relief that we'd received on the zoning as well as licensing would stay in place until November 29th of this year. He also indicated that the face covering guidance, the administration will also rescind that current face covering guidance effective on May 29th. And non-vaccinated individuals are advised to continue, as I mentioned earlier, to stay face covered during that period of time. He also noted that that he extends the protection adopted in an executive order that prohibits medical providers from billing patients who have received COVID-related emergencies and inpatient services for charges in excess of costs paid by the insurance. So those things will still remain in place for the time being until the legislature has said otherwise. So the Massachusetts trend has shown very, very good numbers. In all, our hospitalizations are still around 302 at this point in time. The average deaths have gone down to 7.9 in recent cases. So I think we're actually heading clearly in the right direction. Our numbers have gone way down in terms of testing as well as actual cases statewide. So, but for Foxborough's cases, our cases are down around 10 as of right now, and this as of today. So we're really happy to be able to report that information to you. I'll talk a little bit later on in an item that will come up under the American Recovery Plan about what the federal funding will look like coming up and how that will impact Foxborough and some of the decisions we have to make relative to that. And I think we'll get into that a little bit more detail later on in tonight's agenda, which will be coming up around 8:20 tonight. All right, and back to you, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair. Sorry about that.
Just about the gala meeting room and other boards, so the chair can now decide if they want to still keep meeting remotely or come back in this building.
Right.
So we will let meetings happen back in here.
That's
If
right.
people want to come be in the audience.
Exactly.
Next meeting, that's all allowed. Okay.
That's exactly right. So we are looking at, obviously May 29th is over the weekend and Monday is a holiday. So we'll be looking at ways in which we're addressing that. We're going to be sending, I'm going to send out a notice to the employees as well, that most of our employees are in fact vaccinated, so it's not an issue, but there are a couple folks who haven't, so we're going to make sure that, you know, we remind them that they should really be wearing face masks if possible throughout the building until that situation subsides. So all in all, though, we're looking forward to seeing people's faces. I think the comment that was made by one of our staff members today was looking forward to seeing people's faces if you've been vaccinated. If you haven't, we'll wait a little longer. And so it's okay to say that as well.
So that could, maybe if we can get some kind of guidance out to the chairs, that could be helpful, just, you know, in case people aren't watching this, to let them know, you know, where they can hold their meetings and the kind of new rules associated with it.
Exactly.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
Back to you, Madam Chair.
All right. Next item is Craft Entertainment Group, Jurassic Quest, and I see we have Jess on the line. Are you ready, Jess?
Can you hear me?
I can, and I think you jinxed yourself saying you wouldn't be back for another one of these, and here you are.
I really did. Well, we're excited to be back for Jurassic Quest. This is the same event that we hosted last year. And as Bill sort of outlined just now, all of the procedures and protocols related to COVID-19 are shifting and lifting over the next couple of weeks, which is really exciting. This event remains completely contactless and socially distanced. So it is nice to have it in place and to have it ready and completely COVID friendly. It's even better that that's just an added bonus at this point. So like I had mentioned, it's the same exact event that we hosted last year. It was just tremendously successful. We actually did see a lot of demand for it coming back this year, and sales have already been exceeded our expectations, which is nice. The event dates are June 18th through July 11th, and it runs every day except for Monday and Tuesday, and it runs from 9 o'clock to 9:30. So this event too, if you recall, has individual time and day slots. So it actually was probably the smoothest operation out of our drive-through events because of that really structured timing, and it'll be the same again this year. So when you go to purchase a ticket, you choose both the day and a 1 hour time window, and you have to report or show up anytime within that 1 hour window. It takes about 30 to 60 minutes, depending on traffic and how quickly you move through the event to get all the way through. There are some new attractions this year, which is exciting. There are some upgrades to the dinosaur exhibits themselves, some more environmental aspects of it to kind of create a little bit more of an immersive experience. And then it also does have the full audio component. So in your vehicle, you can stream the informational aspects of the different dioramas that are set up, the different dinosaurs, but there's no external sound. So that's entirely contained within the individual vehicle. We will have sanitation stations set up as well as comfort stations because we do know this is a really young family event. So we do see people needing to use the restrooms that we have set up, and those will again be sanitized on a regular basis, and those will continue to follow COVID protocol with respect to the cleaning and the timing. But overall, it was a really successful event last year. We're looking forward to having it again this year.
All right, thank you. I think you guys have these drive-through events down pretty down pat now. Any questions from the board?
So Jess, my name is Seth Ferguson. I'm new to the board. I just want to make sure you represent the Craft Entertainment Group or the...
I do, yes.
Okay.
Yep, Craft Sports and Entertainment.
Got it. Thank you.
You'll see
Sorry,
who it
I
was.
should
Yeah,
have specified that.
Okay.
She's a regular.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds like it, yeah.
All right, sounds like there's no other questions, so we'll take a motion.
No, go ahead.
What
It's your
happened?
first one. I'm looking forward to it.
Okay. Motion to approve the temporary outdoor entertainment license for the Craft Sports and Entertainment Group for the Jurassic Quest to take place June 18th through July 11th, 2021, from 9:30 a.m. to 9:30 p.m., excluding Mondays and Tuesdays.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Right.
All right. Thanks, Jess. Good luck. All right, we're a little ahead of schedule, so we'll go to 7:15, strategic communication, vision, and mission.
So this is something that we've been working on for a little bit of time now. We're trying to get our arms around this issue, and the reason why it's kind of unique is the fact that it's not something you readily see in the public sector environment. You see it in maybe in a nonprofit or a corporate environment, but not necessarily in a governmental setting, and only because there are many different levels to this discussion that have to occur. This is primarily something that we thought might be helpful, so that everybody's clear about how we communicate with each other, how we communicate with the rest of the world, and how we can actually try and do a better job of reaching out in and around the community and to the outside world, as well as internally, how we communicate. So what we did was the first order of business to try and do is to look at a mission and a vision and mission statement first to set the policy in motion. And we did, as a staff, came up with a draft plan, which we wanted the board to weigh in on at this point to see what your thoughts were, and if we're in the right direction on this, or if we need to further make adjustments. We're happy to do that. This is not set in stone. It's strictly something that we want to try and get your input on before we proceed any further. So the vision statement reads as follows. The town of Foxborough maintains open and honest communication with its residents, businesses, and its employees. We engage with citizens and are committed to providing relevant and accurate information in ways that are accessible, creative, coherent, and timely through all available communications means or methods. The mission statement, so let me just a word about the vision statement. The vision statement is where we aspire to be. And so you start off with that sort of outward goal, outward reaching goal as to where we'd like to be. The mission, the vision statement is the mission statement is how we plan to get there, what tools, what process we plan to use to get there. So the vision statement reads as I just explained. The mission statement reads as follows: the town of Foxborough, guided by the strategic communications plan, will ensure that all departments, boards, and committees provide clear, concise, and transparent communications to residents, businesses, and stakeholders in Foxborough. The town will educate, inform, engage, and ensure opportunity for public participation in all matters that will impact the quality of life for residents and businesses. As an organization, the town will measure the effectiveness of our communications against established goals and standards to ensure that we meet the information needs of our population. So I then will turn it over to the board to get your reaction. If you have any thoughts about how we might improve upon it, or any changes that we'd like to make, we're certainly welcome to take that at this time.
So I'll start off just by, kind of I think a lot of the catalyst to this, and it's been coming for a year or two, is that, just a passion about citizen engagement and how we can engage people and meet them where they are, and, really having a plan that we follow to be sure that we're, communicating everything for businesses, residents, everyone. So this is kind of step one. We'll then create a plan, meeting people where they are, different channels. Even this year, I think having meetings on cable, that's a bigger discussion with cable and all the boards, but I feel more engaged, coming out of a pandemic where I can watch AdCom, I can watch the Board of Health, I can watch Planning Board. So I think it's been a really great thing. So I think we'll use this mission statement to further develop that robust plan and then roll it out. So I think the vision and mission statement's a great start to get us rolling on the next steps. So
process-wise, this ultimately is going to be a policy of the board, not of the staff. So our job is to provide you with ideas and concepts in which, you either embrace or you just tell us to adjust, and we do that. So the question, with something of this significant import, I would think that we'd want a member of the board to help work with us directly. Now, whether it be the chair or any other member of the board, it's entirely up to you. But I do think by having that participation by a member of the board, it's sort of like it lends itself to ownership, and I think that's really important when you develop policy. So I think, we don't want to give the impression this is our policy. This is your policy as the elected members of this community. So we want to be clear about that from the get-go, and that we want to make sure that we're reflecting that in the development of this information.
Yeah, so I think it'll be our policy, and then we will rely on staff to
implement
and drive that and continue to improve it and, take things back to us, so.
Correct.
So, if I might.
Yeah, of course.
So conceptually, we as selectmen have our own vision statement and mission statement.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
How is this different? Unfortunately, I don't have it in front of me, and I didn't think to look it up till just now. Why would this one be different than that one anyway?
Yeah, so this is for the whole town's communication, not just our board.
So this is a communication.
This is a communication policy for the town, so this would roll over everything.
Right.
So,
Okay.
and then the plan
Okay.
would be like, okay, maybe, I'm just giving examples here, because, I've put some thought into this already, like, maybe on a weekly basis, we post all the public meetings that are coming up, maybe, events that are coming up, whatever it is that we put in this plan, this vision and mission statement is how we communicate with the public, the businesses, boards, and then the plan will be like the nitty-gritty of what actually goes out.
Gotcha. And it really does dovetail with what you've been doing in the last couple of years and getting the committees and the information about the committees and realigning the committees. Okay, okay.
And I'd say we've probably already even taken it like 25%, maybe more, just through conversations we've had with,
Yeah.
with where we can communicate. And then residents will get to know, what's coming and what to expect and where to go for their information.
And to get feedback is, because the more we do this, the better it is for everybody. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so think of it, try to put it in perspective in terms of developing a plan or process here. You start off with the policy, and then develop the plan, then you get down to the granular level as to how it actually gets done. All right, so I think that's where we're at. We're at the policy level right now. And so we want to then move down to the next part will be the plan, which will be a lot more robust and a lot more detailed. And then the granular level will be more of the implementation stage of, what levels do we want to go to in terms of providing communication and certain ways. That would get down to probably department head level and, town manager level, what kinds of things are expected from those folks, from our office, the kinds of things that we need on a regular basis to keep the plan consistent.
And right now, different departments are doing different things, and, so it's just getting everyone together on the same page, consistently doing everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. So I love the concept. I think it's great. I think it's the right direction to go. To Doc's point, when I think about a mission and a vision, I think about one mission and vision for an entire organization. So I work at financial services company X, right? I don't need to use the name, right? We have, or the firm has, one mission and vision for the entire organization, and they're sort of crisp and broad enough to encompass all of the strategy that we are talking about to get there, and then underneath the strategy is more refined business objectives or goals. So instead of having a mission and vision for the board and a mission and vision for strategic communications, just in my mind, I'm going to like a mission statement of what we are, why the organization exists, and a vision statement where we want to be, where the organization wants to be, and everything else falls underneath this broader umbrella. So like you said, the umbrella for the strategic communication, one for the entire org. So that's where my mind is going right now.
Do we have one for the whole town? I know we do for our board.
You've gotten down to the individual board level, and a lot of the departments have them as well.
Yeah.
So the question is, do we have a broad one for the entire town? And the answer is probably not, but this would be a good one to try and incorporate that, because now you're looking at methods and means by which you can connect with people and how they can get feedback.
Yeah. I mean, because what I really care about is the communication plan and the execution of the communication plan.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is what we aspire to be. I don't know that we need to, like, do we have to adopt it as a policy? I don't think it needs to be that formal.
Well, it just helps to develop, it's just more or less, it just leads into the plan itself.
Yeah.
You know, it drives the plan is what it does.
Yeah, and I think this does drive the plan.
So when you say the plan, Leah, are you saying annual plan or?
Communication plan, like how we
Communication plan.
communicate. Yeah, this is all about how we communicate.
Which is a process, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So like right now, the library may communicate, and recreation may communicate, and fire may communicate, and another department may not communicate, and it's just getting everyone on the same page. Even, you know, as big things happen at the town level, like what happened at the Rotary, you know, now we're kind of sending out, okay, here's what we did, but if we had a communications plan before any of that stuff rolled out, we have steps we go through to make sure that we communicate it properly to everyone. And it's really, to me, about, you know, having a communication plan and understanding that we send out these things always ahead of time.
Yeah.
Or, you know, you can always know what meetings are going to be up this week, because every Monday we're going to post what meetings are coming up for the week.
Okay. So to continue with the concept of one mission and vision for the entire organization, and then a communication plan sounds like, let's say we have 4 or 5 strategic pillars underneath this umbrella mission statement, and a huge, you know, a pillar of what this whole organization stands on is communication. There's maybe a couple, 2, 3 others, but it all falls under like a broader, but I understand the importance of it and getting it all, doing it right.
So I guess the question is, process-wise, what I'd like you to think, you don't have to decide this tonight, but you can at least think about it for your next meeting, is to say, who do you want to represent the board in the process for us? Because we would appreciate having that guidance. I would think it would be helpful for us.
I mean, I think I'm pretty engaged in it already, unless you guys, of course, if anyone feels passionately about taking this on. But this is something I think we've been working on for a while, especially as it cascades down to boards and committees too. And, you know, even posting minutes online and agendas and keeping up stuff on the website. Like, there's a lot that's going to go into this plan to keep everyone on track and communicating.
It's the world has evolved a lot during the past 10 years. So, you know, the communication plan today is something that is far different than what it was 10 years ago. So I think that we are now at a point where even once we develop this, it's something you constantly look at. You look at it, you know, 2, 3, 4 years down the road again and say, okay, we need to tweak this. We need to make this part of a plan. But at least you have a basis, which you know, I have to give credit to the board and the town for this, because a lot of towns don't even get to this discussion. So I think this is a good discussion to have. I really appreciate having policy discussion with the board, because that really is your primary role. But I think I think a lot of times we don't get to that because there's so many different things that get in the way of that. So I appreciate the opportunity to have this conversation tonight.
So I think, go ahead.
I was going to say, I'll be honest with you, as Bill was saying, he would like a rep from the board. You, like, you know, flashed right through my head. And I was thinking to myself, like, do we want to throw this else on Leah, you know, with all your chair duties? But I think no matter where you were sitting here, I feel like you're the person to lead this. So I would be completely comfortable with you taking this on if somebody else didn't want to do it, because this screams you, Leah.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, and I'll obviously keep the board updated on where we are as well. You know, but this to me is kind of a priority, that I want to get this in motion. And I think that what you just presented gives you enough direction now to go ahead and roll with that. But I don't know that we need to adopt it like a formal policy. I think we've got enough to go, if you guys are okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I think our next, if people are fine, if the members of the board are fine with what we've rolled out here for you tonight, we'll start with the next phase of that, and that's start looking at the next components that we have to go into in developing the plan.
Yeah, and I think this will dovetail into the appointees and committees, and having a department liaison for every board so that they have someone to go to on staff who can help them post minutes and just keep up with things. So I think it kind of dovetails with a lot of different things together, so.
Madam Chair, if I may, I think when the three of us have discussed this as bringing it to you as a policy matter, it was just to this point, not to get a signed document to distribute it, really just to, because this really is a policy decision, but not every policy is so much, you know, voted, signed, and distributed. This is one of those ones where you've just discussed the direction. You've given us a thumbs up with what we've got so far, and now we can move forward to it, or with it. I see this sort of a communication plan as very different, as Bill referred, you know, than just an organizational plan, because most corporate and nonprofit plans are internally driven. You know, maybe with the shareholders and with the employees within. This one, I think, has three major components. And so there's the out to the residents and businesses, and then there's the board, committee, commission level, you know, within the staff and, you know, executive level, and then there's driven within, which is what you see mostly out there, which is employee level. And we'd like to address all three of those layers with this one sphere.
Yeah, perfect. I think we've got, you know, we can do some cleanup on how and what we communicate, and I think it'll give Christina some direction, and maybe she'll be able to focus on that. You know, we'll give her the time and priority to kind of do that. And
yeah, and clearly we have a position established with Christina, you know, serving in that role that, you know, could provide some clearer direction for her as to, you know, what the priorities are, what are the things that need to get done first, so that it's clear and that, you know, what's important, it has to get done in the right order. So I just think this is the right step to take at this point.
okay, all right, great. Anything else on that topic?
No.
Okay.
Good. Yeah.
Very good.
All right, so I'm going to turn this over to Doc for item 5, which is the town manager evaluation review. And, you know, Doc was the chair during this time period and facilitated this process with Sarah. So anyone who's watching, that's why we're going to do a little baton handoff here.
Thank you, Leah. So Sarah and I met last Thursday. We went over all the evaluations. We tallied the scores. As everybody sees here, we gave each category a overall number, and then we added it up at the bottom. We also added for everybody's, we just took snippets of both positives, negatives, constructive criticisms, and I'm going to sort of pass it off to Sarah. Sarah did the nuts and bolts. We both went through everybody's, but then Sarah collated this to the 2-page sheet we have now.
So having not done this here before, is everybody fine if I just run through?
Yeah, I think you did a phenomenal job with the document. So yeah, if you want to just run us through it, Sarah.
All right, so thank you for going through this with me.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure. I think we probably had more fun than we should have. So
we laughed a lot.
So the following is a summary of Bill's performance evaluation for the past year. The evaluation year is May 1st, 2020 through April 30th, 2021. The readings as well as the comments have been compiled from the submissions of all of the board members. The evaluation format and rating scale was changed this year to reflect 4 goals with a varying number of subsections in each. And the scale was changed to a 1 to 5 rating versus a 1 to 4 rating of past years. A rating of 3 represents meeting expectations. Excuse me. The overall average score for Bill's performance eval is a 3.99. So I'll just run through the goals and some constructive or positive comments that were relevant from all of the documents that were turned in. So,
Sarah, can I ask, in the past, when it was 1 through 4, what was the meeting expectations target on a 1 through 4 scale?
It wasn't defined.
Undefined?
it was defined differently.
Okay.
There was, I think, and I didn't do this in years past, so I don't remember off the top of my head, but the 4 I think was outstanding. The 3 was exceeds, 2 was needs, it was
It was kind of lacking a little bit of
Yeah.
definitions, so we've added some of this recently.
It was a grid format, so it
Yeah.
was checkboxes on the last one. This was assigning a score to a particular goal subsection.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different.
And one more thing, and I apologize, just for the people out there, the residents that might not know Sarah. Sarah works in the town's Human Resources Department, and that's how she got picked to go over it with me.
All right, so goal 1 is to protect and enhance the financial health of the town. The overall average score for goal 1 was 4.06. Relevant, constructive, and positive comments. During the year, I asked a few times for an update by department on COVID expenses, and it took a bit of time to understand the ask and get info from departments outside the numbers from ClearGov, while the department heads seemed to individually have a handle on this. Comment 2, during the past 2 budget cycles, including during the pandemic, the communication between AdCom, accounting, and finance were at an all-time high. With the meals, hotel revenue taxes, the budget was constantly needing changes and updates, all this while maintaining a AAA bond rating. Third one, glad we were able to get through a difficult time. This goal was expected due to the pandemic and loss of revenue, stadium, and meals tax. Still disappointed in adding a 4th ambulance and filling vacant positions that could have held off. Moving on to goal 2, protect and enhance communication and engagement. The overall average score for goal 2 was 3.88. The relevant comments were, Bill has a good relationship with townspeople and businesses. Outdoor dining policies were a top priority. Good working relationship with the craft group and Schneider Electric. I found the department head updates very useful. I'd like to think residents and department heads also agree. I would like to see this continue into the next year. Maybe we can add HR and IT next year too. Bill and his team did a good job over the past year working with various businesses and groups during the pandemic. With priorities elsewhere, I do not believe this goal was achieved. I think there is room for improvement on this goal. The confusion with appointees is an example of improvement needed here. All board members are volunteers, and we need to make volunteering as easy as possible with partnership from the town. There has been great effort in helping the uptown businesses continue to thrive, and under the manager's tenure, there is a closer collaboration with the Foxborough Public Schools and their leadership. So I apologize, I didn't put the subsections that all of these were in reference to, so it might seem a little out of
I'm following,
context.
okay.
Okay.
Sarah, protect and enhance communication and engagement is the broad section here.
Yes.
When we say, I mean, are they all protect and enhance? Okay, so protecting communication and engagement is not necessarily relevant. It's just the title for all of them is protect and enhance X, Y, Z.
Yep.
Do you have the valuations in the packet there?
Yes.
Yeah, hand that over to me for a second. I could see your confusion a little bit.
Yeah, 'cause you didn't do one.
See it.
Right,
Let me
right.
actually go down the subcategories.
Oh, that'd be great.
Can I give you
And so,
Just a blank one's fine. Yeah.
so while he's getting that, those titles came right from the goals that were set a year ago. So we took the exact titles of the 4 different buckets, as well as the exact subcategories for everyone, and then those what were evaluated against.
Okay.
So in this one, I'll even go back to the first one. Goal 1, protect and enhance the financial health of the town. There were 5 subcategories. One was continue working with the finance team and department heads to ensure the approved budget is maintained, properly appropriated, and the use of funds maximized and used efficiently. B was seek alternative funding whenever possible through grants, endowments, or gifts to enhance department funding and services. C was to maintain fiscal discipline in all departments annually, finding new savings in every department. D was to update the board on anticipated appropriations and all changes. And E was strategic planning to ensure all CIP items and building maintenance are addressed and needed. Apologize, there was an F. Work with the advisory committee, town accountant, town treasurer when preparing budgets, expenditures, and anticipated financial obligations to be presented accurately at the annual town meeting in an effort to increase fiscal transparency. That was the first section that we went over. So goal 2.
Is that a blank evaluation that you're reading from, or is that somebody's evaluation?
I think that's Bill's self-eval.
This is his
Okay.
bill.
I thought when Doc said blank, I thought maybe it might have been good just to give it to Seth and he could have followed along. I thought it was a blank.
A blank one, no, this is Bill's. So what we just went over, goal 2, protected enhanced communications and engagement. So this was a number of subcategories. A, maintain an open and transparent atmosphere with all elected and appointed boards and ensure that all boards of selectmen members are informed of all important matters impacting the town. Increase cross-board collaboration meetings whenever necessary. B, improve the responsiveness of town government by initiating a flow of information to inform residents of changes in bylaws and policies. Increase accessibility to all information using all media, available media. C, with the rollout of new town website, develop a communication strategy plan to promote the awareness of residents regarding changes in policies, initiatives, and actions of town government. Make access to information more accessible and available by utilizing the town's website and other media platforms. Hold departments accountable for consistent, timely, and accurate communication. D, create a plan for department heads to meet the Board of Selectmen no less than annually to discuss anticipated updates to their departments. E, consistently utilize all sources of media, including newspaper, town website, social media, and local cable access to increase positive communication between the government and residents, and create and innovate venues for open communication and preparedness for the town. F, increase communication between town government and school administration for open and transparent engagement and succession planning. G, communicate and visit local business owners, community clubs, organizations, and schools to ensure the town's commitment to all residents. H, increase dialogue with business owners and committees in an effort to have more responsive and business-friendly community, especially in the uptown area. I, establish a clear and concise line of communication between the town manager's office and various boards. Assist boards and with consistent communication plan by assigning a town department liaison for each. And the last one in this category, challenge each department to think of one or more ways that they can positively enhance customer service with town residents and or businesses.
That's it?
So that was in that category.
That's just the first two.
I love it.
But as Leah,
Hey Seth, I just sent it to you
Oh, thank you,
by
Steph.
email. So if you want to follow along.
And our next meeting, we're gonna now take the goals, which I think when we worked through this, some of them were repetitive, so I think we can skinny this down. But there was never any goals before last year.
Okay.
So I know it's kind of like hard to believe, coming from the private world, but now our next meeting, we'll take these goals, Bill will revise them, and then we'll vote on them. So we'll set them so that we do this a year from now again.
Got it.
so as
Okay.
Leah said, this evaluation is based on the goal plans we set
That
for
we
him
set.
a year ago.
Right. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking ahead. I'm thinking about, if you think of these as key performance indicators or KPIs as they're known as, what the key is the word that if you have 17 things, it's hard to do any of them or focus on. You got the, sorry, let's go. Let's move on.
And I will say, besides like 2 or 3 of them, they were all hit.
Yeah.
But coming from a year where there's never been any goals or any focus.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
For Bill, in fairness, for Bill to do his job, to know here's what we're looking for,
Yeah, rather than have it be
Yeah.
more subjective.
No, this was actually very helpful for me.
Yeah.
This should, more than ever before. And it's interesting that I think my self-evaluation was not that far astray from the ultimate scoring that was here. So we were pretty closely aligned in that respect. I mean, I think there were a couple things that, of course, we differentiated a little bit, but I think generally speaking, it went pretty well.
Great.
So would you want me to go through the next categories before Sarah
I think she
discusses
got
them, or are you
I have-
comfortable now that you have them?
I have them here. So
Okay.
I can take a quick look as we talk to each one. Thank you.
Okay,
That's all.
and when Sarah went into a category with pluses or minuses, it was all grouped together. It wasn't each A through E. We just took
Oh, yeah.
a sampling.
We could have been here for a very long
Yeah.
time if we pulled all the comments, so we
Right.
just sort of compiled the most relevant and/or, you know,
The essence. I think
Useful.
someone used that word. I think that's the Mary Ann word, the essence of the, Mary Beth, sorry.
Was there, so, did we try to, so the essence, right? Did you look for more of the outliers, or did you sort of, I mean, what?
we went with the most relevant answers. I think
It's a
that's
tough one.
kind of what there were, the way that we went through, and Doc would read them, and we would kind of determine whether or not it was relevant. And then we went through each category and picked a few in each column, the constructive and the positive. And then it was just a matter of putting together what made the most sense, without being incredibly repetitive.
Yeah.
Because
okay.
a lot of the comments were same as above, or
Can I
Yeah,
just add
already
one more
answered.
thing too, is what you're seeing here is just the summary document, that's the public record.
Right.
He has seen everyone's individual, and we've each individually had meetings with him to review his evaluation. Like Stephanie did,
With
I
Bill.
did, Doc did, I don't know if you did, I don't know if Chris
Yeah,
did.
yeah, Ed met with me.
Yeah, so this is just like a summary document, but what you would expect to happen one-on-one has already also happened with everyone.
Got it, okay.
And just a tad more history, you know, there was a few years back where it was thought that there wasn't enough constructive criticism in the synopsis. So this is going back 3-4, I think I may have even been a freshman selectman.
Sure.
So, you know, constructive is just as important, if not more important than you know, the actual positives, because it gives him a goal to, Bill, a goal to achieve. But what Sarah and I also found was there's quite a few instances that a bunch of us said the same things. So,
Oh, yeah,
so
sure.
if 3 of us said the same things, we quoted one of us.
That
So,
makes perfect
you know,
sense.
between the 4 of us sitting here, we're going to recognize a few of the positives and a few of the negatives. But keeping in mind that it was generally, if it was a positive, there were a bunch of us that said it.
If you saw it 3 or 4 times,
Yeah,
then it
then we
was,
picked the one whose grammar was the best, and
And seeing 4 of these now, this is probably the most robust, balanced one that I think
Yeah.
that I've seen.
absolutely.
So I think
Very
Sarah
good.
did a really good job.
Thanks.
Not that you didn't, Mike, but
it's okay.
saying, we're growing as we go each year.
That's all right, so goal 3 was protect and enhance business and economic development. The overall average score for goal 3 was 3.93. The relevant comments, public parking at Schneider's End of Bird Street, lean to add 17 spaces on Mechanic Street. Although communication with CSX and MCR is very difficult, they're totally autonomous. We've gotten 4 of 7 railroad crossings rebuilt. As for MBTA, we have a stop at Gillette. During a difficult year, this was achieved. I think a great example of this is the addition of parking at Bird Railroad Ave and the wayfinding signs. The changes to the Rotary also helped with traffic in congested areas. It will be interesting to see what comes of the Rotary changes next year. Slowly but surely, we're getting to optimal use of an oddly set up center of town. Do you have any questions on that section? Okay. Goal 4, protect and enhance town operations. The overall average score for goal 4 was 4.09. Relevant, constructive, or positive comments. Transparency is not always evident. A very smooth town meeting 2021 due to planning and structure. ClearGov, a great addition. Although a plan was developed, I still think we have some work to do here on using the plan hands-on day-to-day. Although smoother than past years, I think there is some organization to be done to be sure there are no last-minute fires. Although we don't have a final HPP, I appreciate how Bill isn't pushing or rushing the HPP. We need to be sure it's right for the town and have the buy-in of key stakeholders. Although this goal was not met, I think Bill did the right thing here.
That's the housing production plan, if anybody was wondering what the
I was.
HPP was. Okay.
Myself, Bill, Frank, and Bob initiated a policy for the protocols on town meeting and special town meeting used this year to perfection. I think over the past 4.5 years, we've seen the importance of updating all policies and procedures, working with Mike on getting this done. So those were the 4 rated goal sections that all averaged together to come up with the overall average score, which exceeded the met expectations rating that we needed to achieve. So for conclusions, this was an open-ended section in addition to the areas that need improvement and the additional comments. So we took anything that was there. So these are everybody who made a comment is included here. In what areas has the town manager excelled over the past year? During one of the most challenging years in the last decade, Bill has done an excellent job maintaining operations and managing the budget. We are lucky to have him leading us since many towns around us are not in such a great position. Keeping Town Hall open and running was quite an accomplishment, keeping COVID news up to date, handling the pandemic and having the town come out even stronger than before. Some towns barely have their town halls open back up, and it seems Foxborough never missed a beat. In the time with our town, the manager has been able to structure a highly competent team that manages the need of our town. Totally taking control with his calm manner during the COVID pandemic, thinking outside the box, listening to all his department heads, working with everyone to get the town on the other side of the pandemic as strongly as possible. So the next section is what areas need improvement? What constructive, positive ideas can you offer to the town manager to improve in these areas? I think we will talk through this during next year's goal planning. For me personally, I'd like to see Bill focus on implementing rigor around annual activities like budget process and town meeting to get things in order for a change of leadership coming in the next few years. I'd like to see Bill tighten up roles and responsibilities so he can unload some of the day-to-day stuff to be able to focus more strategically on his succession planning. Finding ways to control the budget in a crisis, eliminating OPEB payment for 2 years while fully rewarding contracts is not controlling the budget. Funding a 4th ambulance is an example, make the difficult decisions. I would just keep a close eye on everything happening in the center of town with all of the soon-to-be happening construction along with potential changes to traffic flows. This could be an area that may have people not too happy. And then the final section was, do you have any other comments or observations you want to share with the town manager? None at this time. Bill definitely had a successful year in his role as town manager. Over the past year, too many issues were brought to the table too late or not at all. Town business needs to be done at the table. It has been a pleasure working alongside you for the past 6 years.
Who said that?
I have been very lucky to work with Bill over the past 5 years. So that is the summary of all of the evals that came in for the town manager.
All right, great.
Thank you.
Anything to add, Bill?
So I just want to say thank you. I appreciate, this is, I think I related to all of you, this is probably one of the most uncomfortable meetings for me I have throughout the course of the year, but this is my 38th time I've done this, so, and now that we've got it right, I only have one left. So, so how that works, but no, seriously, this was a really good process. I think, I would agree that we probably should scale back some of the things so we can be a little bit more clear on some things, and really, I think, along with what Seth was saying, be clear about what the indicators are, so we're clear on what the expectation is. I've shared with you that things can be interpreted different ways, and I think this is something that we all, can help each other try and get through, because at the end of the day, my job is to make the community happy, make the board happy, and make my employees happy, because happy employees create great results. And I think that's what we've made great strides in that over the course of the past several years. And I'm really fortunate to have such a great team, surrounded by such a great team. I think that there's always room for improvement. And the day that I stop thinking that way is the day that I really should hang it up. So. And I mean that in the sense that, anybody in this position doesn't really know it all. It's just the way it is. We just really have to constantly learn. And this was an extraordinary year. I mean, this was anything but normal. And I think that we got through it because we were all committed to making it happen. And the cooperation between the board, the employees, and the different committees was extraordinary. So I'm grateful for that. Thank you for the comments, the kind comments, and the constructive ones as well. We'll continue to try and develop as best we can, and look forward to the next upcoming year. Thank you.
And thank you for your leadership over the last year. It certainly was a difficult year, and I think you see from everything here and from when you and I met, I think we've got the foundation here for everything we need. We just got to kind of polish a few of the stones and
I agree with that.
Get things in order, for the next couple of years as we have some transition. So, kind of just naturally going right into the next agenda item, which is goal setting. My thought from here was Bill can take the goals. Thank you, Sarah. You did a really great job.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So my thought was Bill can take the goals that we had last year, and in my opinion, those 4 main goals can maybe almost stay the same because they're so high level, and just have Bill kind of rework the sub-bullets under them and then present those to us. You know, hopefully we can get them a little bit in advance, and maybe we can come to the table and, you know, approve some goals at the next meeting. I'd like to have it done by the end of June.
So I'll work on something for you, and we'll give you something for the next meeting.
And it might even be a good idea, Seth, for you to meet up with Bill maybe and have,
Yep.
you know, just that kind of foundational discussion before
Yep.
that meeting happens, so you can kind of learn and understand a little bit how, or you know, find out where his head's at, because I think all of us kind of helped create this, and we're on the same page last year. And if you have some other thoughts, you know, certainly let him know as he goes into creating them.
Yeah, okay, sounds good.
But I think we all agree we can skinny them down a little, yeah.
80% of it's there, but, yeah, there's a few things that
Well,
were duplicative.
Nothing new was perfect right out of the gate, so
Yeah.
I mean, so I
Right.
think this is, but it was a really good start, so. You'll have to excuse me for 1 second, I just got a call from my mother, I never get a call from my mother at
Okay,
night, so
okay.
I need to
Everything's okay.
take that, so.
Okay, so the next part of that agenda item is, we've never had goals as a board either, Seth.
Right.
So, my thought is maybe we have, and I don't want to tie a number to it, but I'm thinking something small, like 3 to 5 goals, things that we as a board would like to see happen before the end of next year. You know, whether that's uptown development, whether that's looking at the budget process, whether that's, you know, reviewing policies that are out there. So my thought was maybe everyone could send maybe, you know, however many you have, maybe you have 1, maybe you have 2, maybe you have 3, into, I don't know if it's Christina or Mike or who, and then maybe if you guys can compile a list, and if there's any overlap, maybe you could kind of bunch those together, and then we can come and hopefully maybe right after or with Bill's goals, create our own goals as well.
You can feel free to send those to me.
Yeah, I think, we can't, we have to send them to Mike.
Yeah, I didn't know if Mike or Christina, which one. So, you know, just to keep us on track, as things go by and day-to-day comes by, and then next thing you know, the year's gone by, and, you know, there might be something we really want to accomplish and work toward. It kind of keeps us on track.
I think it's a good idea.
Okay. Certainly let me or Mike know if you have any questions about that.
Okay.
Okay, all right, good. Phew. All right, so just while you stepped out, we mentioned that everyone on the board, we're going to maybe come up with like 3 to 5 goals for the board, and Mike's going to compile those, and then he can kind of group them together. And, you know, whatever we want to accomplish during this next year as a board, just to keep us on track and keep us honest.
Right. Yeah, no, that'll be good, and then we'll just go from there. I do think that one of the things that you should focus on, and Leah, I think you and I talked about this, about developing a succession plan, and I have some ideas about how you may put that plan together for, you know, for the recruitment process for my replacement. That's something that does take some time, so we'll have to put together a ROSI schedule for that, or to show basically how that will work, and so lay that out for everybody. So it's a lengthy process, and obviously one which, you know, should include, you know, comments from the community, as well as, you know, it should be a committee that's made up of, you know, that's pretty representative of the community. So, you know, I think that's an important piece.
Through the chair, and just as important is having a timeline.
Exactly.
Time slips, you know?
Yeah, time slips, it does.
Exactly, you know,
You don't be
now's the
rushing
time
about
to have set dates that we
Right.
need stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what a RASI list is.
Yeah, right, it's a project plan.
It's responsible, accountable.
Yeah.
It's basically like a who's on first for, you know, all the different
Exactly.
tasks.
It's basically a project.
And I said to Bill, you know, I think we'll rely on him a lot for the succession plan. We'll kind of bless it, but we don't know what he does day to day in his office or what he needs to do to hand off.
Yeah.
We just need to make sure that we have the oversight that we get there. And then like what does the committee look like? Maybe that sits to interview that, you know, just starting to give some thought to that. And even reaching out to the community. So, you know, for me, like, I think budget is a big one coming out of the COVID pandemic. And then, you know, policies, we've already started, Mike's looked at a lot of policies and we've dusted a lot off, but there are also a lot that are out there that haven't been looked at in a while. So
Yeah.
if anything comes to mind, just send it to Mike and we can compile it and, come up with them. And I don't know that it has to be as formal as Bill's, if we amend our goals through the year, we can maybe check in on a quarterly or something.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Great.
Leah, I
Thank you.
think the goals, so if we're talking about board, the selectmen goals, how do you think about ensuring that they align with Bill's goals from an administrative perspective so that we're all working towards the same things, right?
That's why I think they happen together, or our goals are right after his meetings, because I think that they kind of happen in tandem.
So just in terms of how that typically works, the board will set its goals. I'll sort of align mine with yours.
Right.
And then the department heads will align their goals with mine.
Cascades.
Yeah.
Cascades
Yeah.
down through the organization, and then it works really well that way.
Yeah.
So you set the overlying themes of what the board wants to achieve over the next year. That sort of makes it easy for me to then sort of set in place what the key points are. And then department heads, I'll just make them, or not make them, but of course, we'll work with them to try to develop, their goals around those particular items.
And we'd have to look at your contract too to see the dates, but I don't know that like May to April necessarily makes a lot of sense. I feel like that's just tied into when maybe you started or a contract was signed, but I'd like to see like it kind of cut off with town meeting.
Yeah.
Or, the fiscal year or something. Like right now, the dates are kind of a little wonky.
Yeah.
So just looking at that too to see what makes sense.
So I'm not sure I follow that one. So you're saying.
Like right now, we evaluate you through April 30th.
Right.
So that doesn't include town meeting.
Right.
And I think it might tie back into your contract.
I think it did.
I think it did.
Originally, because originally I arrived here in April.
But then your contract changed, and I don't know that ever changed. So maybe if we can just take a look at that, Mike, and make sure that the dates make the most sense. And if we have the ability to shift it, a little bit, especially since, obviously we're almost in June and we're just getting there, maybe it's.
So it probably makes sense to do it through the end of May.
That
Right?
makes the most sense to me too.
Because then
Yep.
you evaluate during June, and then you proceed in July with a whole new set of goals.
I just want to make sure that there's nothing in Bill's contract that.
There's not. And so what you would do this cycle, I recommend, is just do instead of a 1-year evaluation, do a 13-month evaluation.
Okay, yep, perfect.
And then it lines up,
Well, do you also think that aligns with, if we do it May 30th, usually our town election is April 30th, our town election. So what could happen is you have a new board member coming on and you're still in the evaluation period.
So it's a fair point.
That's not a bad point.
It's a fair point, but the way you've dealt with that this year is that the sitting member of the board would still do the evaluation. So irrespective of when the election occurs, so your first Monday in May is the election. So, but to pick up the town meeting, you have to wait to the end of the month. Well, you got to wait till another week.
But I'm just wondering if that, it's just funny that we, that election is first week in May. So that may be why.
Yeah.
Why we've done it through January. I guess the only way to know that is to find out what the dates were.
Yeah, it was aligned with that. It was aligned with the
Before
election a lot of times
Right.
for that reason, to try and have sort of the existing members of the board would serve.
I don't have his contract in front of me, but I feel like there was something in that had to do with you need a satisfactory review.
Yeah, if it's satisfactory.
So I think that when I did look at it a couple
yeah.
months ago, and it made sense to me, so that's why I posed the question to Mike, so we can just look at
And the
it.
increase doesn't come into play until July 1 anyway.
Okay, so it sounds like there's no issue as
No.
long as we have an understanding that the exiting board member, if they're exiting, because there's plenty of elections that people
Right.
carry over too.
Exactly right.
So, it's really only an issue sometimes, and, we can evaluate what makes the most sense, with that member's availability and.
Right.
Okay. All right, all set to move on from that one, guys?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, so I think I saw Paige. You there, Paige? Do we have Paige and Lance on, or just?
Paige is just on for the outdoor dining, and then Lance, Paige, and Chris are all available to talk about the,
All right, so the next.
Traffic first?
Yeah, the next item is the common Rotary traffic trial pattern update. I don't know, I saw a Paige, so
There they are.
I'm not tagging you to the item, but
should be planning, oh, did I have that wrong? So I might have it wrong.
Yeah, they're both there now, so,
I have common next.
yeah. Commons next. Okay.
All right, can you guys can you talk so we can make sure we hear you okay? Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Hi there.
Hello there.
All right, great. So this is a hot topic. And Paul, I don't know if you can turn it up a little bit out here. So we asked this group to come in to talk about the hot topic uptown that is the common traffic trial pattern. And I think, you know, when you drive up there, it is a trial. The cones are a little bit alarming at first, but it's definitely been a hot topic, and we've been able to experience it now for a couple weeks. I'd say the Board of Selectmen have, at least me personally, I'm fielding multiple calls and questions a day about it. And I would say the overwhelming feedback I've received is people like what's happening down the south end, not so sure about the parallel parking. So that's why we invited you guys, and we're kind of backtracking a little bit on our PR tour. You know, why do we do this? How can people get feedback? So I think for me, selfishly, that's the biggest thing. I'm seeing some direction to send people to the Board of Selectmen. And while we want that feedback, Lance is gathering that feedback. So it's important for that to go to him. Feel free to copy us. But, you know, going to Facebook as a keyboard warrior is not the way to get feedback constructively back to town employees about what's going on in the common. And quite honestly, I've been a little bit embarrassed by this community, not this board, but our community, what I have seen on Facebook. Some of the stuff is downright rude and mean. So, you know, Paige, Chris, Lance, I apologize. I don't think anyone want to go to work and have a group of 8,000 people, you know, get behind a keyboard and act the way that I've seen on this and some other stuff this week. So, you know, my biggest message is if you have feedback, Lance, maybe you can let everyone know the survey that's released and, you know, where people can get more information.
Exactly. Yeah, I've been collecting emails from people, compiling that way, but we've also put together a more formal survey, which I believe is posted, or we're trying to circulate now, get it on Facebook and everything, which will help us sort of aggregate the data, people's perspectives and opinions in a much more organized way. Because we do want that. We want to know what people's experience are and what their thoughts are. I think I agree with what you were saying earlier, Leo. We've heard a lot of positive comments in sort of the South Street and Central Street intersection there, kind of preventing the, you know, crossing of the lanes there for people trying to last minute turn and potentially endangered, you know, the cross traffic. But people are a little unsure about the parallel parking right now. It is an adjustment. You know, it does force you to kind of slow down as you're coming around those corners and really kind of be observant. But at the same time, the benefit of that being that we have this increased pedestrian area where you can get out of your car and, you know, now you're not walking behind vehicles that are backing into you as you park in the, you know, the interior parking area there. So, I mean, there is that added safety for the pedestrians in that area, and that was the intention. So, you know, we're still feeling out. We're still wanting everyone's comments. I know it's new. People, it takes a little bit of time to adjust to these things. So, you know, but we appreciate people's patience.
And it is a trial. So that's the purpose of what we're doing, is we're trying it. It doesn't mean, you know, we're figuring it out. So
and that's what any of the calls or emails I got, or just generally walking around and people like, what are you guys doing up there? So, and I said, that's what I said. It's a trial. It's a 3-week trial, and that's how you learn what's working, what isn't. With that being said, can I ask a question though? Just Lance, off your statement, and like I said, I'm trying to keep that open mind, but I really disagree. Well, wait a minute. I want to make sure I have something right. Where the parallel parking is marked now is where it's going to be?
Potentially. I mean, nothing's set in stone with this. I mean, this is just a trial, so we are making adjustments on the fly with this as well, as we need to. So, I mean, that theoretically it could. Yeah. But I mean, if we want to move something, we can certainly move something.
And Lance, maybe you can speak to that because you have done that. So let's let everyone know, like, day one of those turns didn't work. You guys got out there and changed stuff. So I want everyone to know that this is a trial and it's a work in progress. And as things haven't been working, we haven't just been sitting back and saying, we'll see what happens in 3 weeks. There have been tweaks made throughout the last couple of weeks.
Exactly. And, you know, Chris has definitely been out there, you know, as, you know, all the DPW staff has been out there observing this and making adjustments. When we see, you know, if it's not working with the turning radius or something, we pulled curbing sections to accommodate that. You know, it is tough, you know, with having the physical barriers in there as opposed to just what, you know, the future version would probably just be more just striping. But we want people to learn to not make that, cross, from one lane to another. So that's, part of the cones, and the cones allow it to be more of a temporary setup too, so we can pull things out. So, but yeah, we are adjusting things, as they need to be, as we notice things.
So what I'd like to ask, I mean, I guess I could go right on and take the survey too, but I think maybe if you are able to answer it now, what I'm hearing a lot, I mean, of course, it's that nobody likes change to begin with. But what I'm a little confused about is, and of course, Ed and I were on the subcommittee. I drive a pretty big SUV. I mean, not a tractor trailer, but what I am finding is, I find that parallel parking on both sides and the spacing, you can't open your door. If you open the passenger door or the driver's door on the right parking, that door is in traffic. Like, I know the concern about walking behind. Honestly, I think what we've created there is more of a danger of people trying to get out of the car. That's why I wasn't sure. I'm like, am I missing something? Like, is this, I know you don't want to mark up all the, we already have all the parallel spots, lines there, so you're not going to mark that up. Then I thought maybe I was missing something. Maybe the parallel parking was going to go against the curb. That's why I asked if it was there. I'm really stumped how they're, I came around that corner, from Main Street, and where that first parking spot was, I think if there was a car there, I was going to hit it. I had somebody on the inside lane, so we were going parallel. I don't know how, if there was nobody parked there, I don't know how I would have, never mind a tractor trailer, I don't know how I would have maneuvered by. I also feel like whatever lane I'm in, I am adjacent to the parallel parker. I mean, the line is there. If somebody doesn't park far enough into the curb, I know an engineer designed this, but it's hard for me to envision it. I'm trying to keep that open mind, but if a door opens, I think that door is in traffic. So I honestly think it's creating more of a safety issue for people getting in and out of their car than, at least when the parallel parking was there, you still have that buffer. I know people say they didn't want, I mean, I don't know if you were going to try to get your children out of a car now, does anybody else understand?
No, I think Chris and I have already had this conversation.
Oh, okay.
So he has an answer for this.
All right, perfect.
I'll jump in on that. So those spaces are 8 feet wide, which is the standard width of a parallel parking space. The lane widths themselves are 10.5 feet, which again, lane widths can vary anywhere from, down to 9 feet in reality. I don't know too many places that have designed them that way and built them that way, but you can go down to 9 feet, and usually highway lanes are 12 feet wide. And that's usually as wide as they get, is 12 feet. When you take the turn onto Central Street, you have parallel parking on both sides of the street. They're 8 foot spaces, 8 foot wide spaces, and those lanes are 11 feet, maybe 11 and a half feet wide. So on Central Street, where there's also parallel parking, you have an extra foot of lane width that you're dealing with, versus what's around the common right now. So there is an option. If we like parallel parking and want to keep that, we could push the spaces on the common side closer to the common and gain that extra foot if that's what makes people comfortable. But I think part of the keeping those lanes narrow is that it's supposed to slow people down. And that's a big part of the changes up there, is that it's meant to slow people down. I know the cones and the barrels, it's just a sea of orange right now. But bringing all those barrels out is, potential for reduced crossing exposure when you're using the crosswalks and when you're actually on foot up there. I think a lot of the comments we're hearing are just from people that are driving. We're not getting it from the people actually on foot and walking around up there. And that's something that we're hoping to capture. We know there's a farmers market this week. we're hoping to capture some people from that farmer's market in our survey that are actually parking and walking around up there as well. But the design of those spaces and those lane widths do meet all the engineering standards that they're supposed to.
So, well, and I figured that, like, we didn't have, I wasn't up there designing it. So, I mean, I figured that. I guess the only other comment I would probably make is, so of course, Central Street is a very busy street, and we've all been going or coming and have to stop to allow, somebody to back into a spot or, pull into a spot with the parallel parking. I think now you're talking the common itself. People traveling on that common are jetting out to, 5 or 6 different, streets. And I think maybe part of it is the fact that once you're on a straightaway and that's the way you're going, we're asking people to change lanes, if I've come from Cohasset and I'm going down south, I'm going to come on that inside lane all the way around and then have to get to the outside. And that's I think when I noticed it, because it's not a straightaway that you say, okay, now you're looking there. I'm looking, is there somebody in that lane? So I'm swapping lanes on straightaway traffic where one lane. So you see someone pulling out, you're gonna stop, whatever. Maybe that's the difference for me, because I'm a great parallel parker. So the parallel parking doesn't scare me at all. And so, yeah, I mean, we'll wait and see. We'll see what the next couple of weeks brings. I was just really surprised, and then I was driving, my husband's car. It's a smaller vehicle. I thought maybe it's just me in a big vehicle. But then even in his, I said, oh my God, as I'm coming around that corner, someone's opening the door, so I understand, maybe it's the vision line. You've got people coming around, you got people trying to switch lanes. So yeah, we'll give it a couple more weeks and let's see what else. I mean, I guess the one thing, as Leah said, that I would tell people at home is give it the time. We'll figure it out. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, we'll figure it out. I know you guys are working hard at it. And my comments right now, just to give you some insight to what I'm seeing, but not meant to come across as critical at all. I know you guys are working very, very hard at this project, and we'll see how it works out.
I think Doc and Bill both had something too.
Go ahead, Doc.
Okay, couple of things. One, I'm sorry, Lance, if you're not on Facebook, like I am not, how would you get the survey? I want to fill it out.
It's on the town's homepage.
Oh, it is? I thought it was just
right there.
Facebook.
No.
Okay.
I was just saying some people have been horrible on Facebook.
Oh.
like criticism's okay, but I mean, just like bad.
No, someone while I was walking my dog drive by and yelled, "It sucks."
Yeah.
Thanks for the positive feedback.
Yeah.
But
at least they told it to your face.
I know who it was. So Chris, as most of you know, I am a walker downtown 3-4 times a day, walking across through everything. It's working. It's working on a number of levels. Certainly the obvious one where it's not allowing people from the inside lane to cut off 3 lanes and go down commercial. But I think just as important is it is slowing cars down. There was a tendency up there for years for it to be like the Indianapolis 500. Kids, everyone, not kids, I shouldn't have said that. Everyone zooming around. It's slowing people down, and that's not a bad thing at all up at the center of town. Also, in walking across 2 lanes of traffic coming from South Street going to the Rotary, it now gives me as a pedestrian, instead of having to look through potentially 3 lanes of traffic, one at a time. And that's important, because when that first person stops, you at least can start going a little bit and wait for that second person to stop instead of wondering where they're going coming down. So from a pedestrian, It's working tremendously. Feedback, to lean a little bit towards what negative feedback. Steph is saying, love the inside, parallel parking, not too sure about the outside. That strip in front of Judy's and the bank. Walking here today, when there were no cars there, cars coming around the Rotary on the outside, almost all of them had their tires in that parking area with no cars there. So, it's certainly a little tighter when there are cars there, and just not too sure about the outside parallel parking. But I didn't think about the thought that you could slide the inside in a little bit more and maybe give us that 1.5 feet. But I was going to bring up, commercial streets been parallel parking, and so has that little bit of South Street when you come out of forever. So, the precedent has already been set.
You know what, I also think once all the cones, right now it looks like, oh my God, like all the barrels and cones. I don't think people realize is, that is just so we can temporarily set it up.
It looks a little silly when you come up, but it's because it has to,
Yeah. And by the way, the one thing I didn't say is the whole Central Street thing, stopping that crossover, that was a pet peeve of mine. I've been cut off dozens of times. And so, and I think when we met, that was one of the things I was really excited about you guys trying to control. And so, thumbs up for me on that. I think what's the worst thing that can happen? If you miss the turn, you go around the common one more time. So, thumbs up for that.
So I think we're going to take Bill, and then Paige, I see you want to say something. So Bill's just been in the room ready to say something for a little bit.
So thank you, Madam Chair. I think, first of all, I think the guys and gals associated with this project have done a terrific job. So thank you to all of you for doing the work you're doing here. There is a fundamental reason why this is being done. And I think that's sort of getting lost in the discussion here. And I think that the key is the reason why we were looking at this was to try and slow things down in the center of town, because that's how most downtowns are. They're not made for speedways. They're supposed to be meant to slow things down for the benefit of the businesses as well as the pedestrians that are going to be in the center of town. You go through any major downtown area, it's slow for a reason. Because it actually helps the businesses so that people will go by a little slower and say, oh, I need to stop there. Oh, I need to look. I didn't know that was there. So there's a reason for that in this whole, there's a method to madness, so to speak, in how this is being done. You go to any other part of the country, by the way, this is exactly how it's being done. So this is not unique in terms of Foxborough. So I just think that should be kept in mind in terms of the goal here. This is a tool to make it safer. It's a good economic development tool. And don't forget, by the way the downtown looks today is not how it's going to look in even a year. You're going to have a couple new businesses that are going to open up there, make it more pedestrian friendly. It's going to be safer once those businesses are open.
Thanks, Bill. All right, so we're going to go to Paige. She's been kind of patiently waiting, and then Seth, I think you had something, and Ed too, so.
Thank you. So Bill kind of stole my thunder, but
sorry
figures because we're both planners by trade. But I did want to just set that stage to let folks know that in addition to the survey, there is a document called the Frequently Asked Questions on this project. So that's on the front page, and it's been started to be distributed on social media. So folks should really read that. I think it sort of tells the story of this. And I look forward to the strategic communications plan, because I think, we all learned from this as well of sort of how to get in front of this, because we all spent a lot of time talking about this. We did it at a couple selectmen's meetings. We felt transparent, but we learned that the messaging should be better. In fact, we even had the suggestion of, there should be like a sandwich board or something over next to those flower pots to say, future pedestrian walkway, to show why we're really disrupting people's traffic patterns. So building on what Bill said, I just want to point out that we've been charged with making Uptown more pedestrian friendly. Not only for businesses, but honestly for kids and moms. I don't know how many different emails and calls I've gotten and comments in passing from the booth rec moms. I guess at certain age, kids can go up there alone. And so many people are afraid of the crosswalks up there. So in the little story we wrote about why we did this, we were saying we simply got on this grant program. This was all funded by state, by the way. They even bought the flower pots that we get to keep. But when we went to them, we were solely looking at crosswalks. And we've learned a lot about, what narrowing, like all those crazy cones that Doc mentioned. It's true, that creates pedestrian sort of safe harbor. I know when I crossed in front of Bay Colony, I felt so much safer because there was like refuge for me as a pedestrian. So I just want to point out that that is true. Like if we were trying to design a thoroughfare, or honestly, it's funny, I've seen people, being upset that 18-wheelers are struggling. I think that's a benefit in a way. I think they've been buzzing through Foxborough Common because it's convenient and it's an easy way for point A to point Z, but they should be on the highways, not on our local roads. Now, obviously some you can't avoid, and I'm not saying all truck traffic, but I'm just saying we want people up there. And like Bill said, we're going to have the Orpheum, the Marilyn Rodman open, any day now, May 29th. They're going to start packing the place. We're going to have Shoveltown opening next year. We're doing more and more work with the Foxborough Common Business Collaborative and the Rec Department and the JC. So I think we're going to start to see more activity. And those pedestrian spaces will be appreciated. So I just wanted to let folks know that that's sort of why we're doing this. We all know it's crazy to see cones. We understand change is traumatic, but there really has been a reason, and we were told in the master plan that Uptown and the Common was the #1 place to protect in the community and to enhance and activate it, and that's what we've been trying to do. And it's all with the businesses in mind, and also for those kids at the Booth Rec.
All right.
Thanks, Paige. So quickly, a thought, an observation, and a question. So the thought is, and this is just the non-engineer person talking again, but if we did have an extra foot, maybe we could give it to the outside parking people to give them a little bit more room to open their doors. Take that for what it is, which is not much, but in terms of the, so actually I'll just go to my question. Is there a model that we could look at? I know there's, every town's unique, but somewhere where we could say, okay, here is a similar town square, to Bill's point there, it's trying to slow people down, but with parallel parking on inside traffic, parallel parking on the outside with similar widths that we could point to and say, it's working here. And hopefully it's not in Arizona or somewhere we'd have to, but like somewhere locally that we could look to and say, this is what they're doing and it works.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
Yeah.
I always think, I spend a lot of time this summer in Falmouth too, and they have like a main drag that's a main drag. There's parallel parking on both sides. People are coming in and out, tons of pedestrians crossing, and there is parallel parking on both sides. And if you ever get down there this summer and check out
You say Falmouth?
Falmouth, yeah.
You can picture it, yes.
Yeah, like that, I think they do a really good job too, so that's why I'm always looking at them. But there's not a lot of room to get out. You kind of have to, look like you do now on Central Street. But it'd be interesting to see what their widths are and such.
You can go to Norwood, you can go to Dedham.
Yeah,
any one of those, there's parking on both sides of the downtown,
But
other main streets.
correct me if I'm wrong, Lance and Chris, but early in the process, before you jumped on board, there is no downtown in the Commonwealth like Foxborough, correct? Like there's no Rotary that has 2 lanes of traffic that goes around it. Wasn't that what the engineer said at one point, that there was really nothing to, match or?
Yeah, I think the number of streets entering and exiting, the number of crosswalks, along with the 2 lanes of traffic moving in the same direction, made Foxborough very unique in our traffic situation and pedestrian situation. So the 2 lanes in the same direction is going to be the trick to try to find somewhere that matches that. 1 lane each direction, like Bill said, Norwood, Dedham, those spaces that have a common space, a green space that pedestrians use. I can think of a couple that they move the traffic around, but there's nobody going to sit in the middle of the island. But we can poke around at that and see if there's something else and see if we can answer Seth's question and get him something to look at.
I think Ed had a comment too.
Well, the thing I had looked at about the common traffic was the issue of traffic accidents that have taken place in the past year. And Chief Grace was kind enough to look that number up. And there are actually 24 different traffic incidents on the common. And I think by having the new layout, it is slowing cars down, which has a positive impact on reducing crashes. Unless, you know, people from highway have received notice, oh, you know, 2 cars collided because somebody was opening their car door. To my knowledge, I haven't seen anything in the reporter about crashes taking place.
That's a really good point, Ed. And maybe, Lance, that could be something that you wrap into your report at the end of this, is obviously, I'm sure you probably were planning on that maybe anyway, but that's a great point to look at that data point as part of the wrap up.
Not only that, is somewhere along the line, not only maybe Chief Grace, but maybe a couple of sergeants that are out on the road. You know, we all think of Dave, but you know, Sergeant Fascaldo, you know, someone who's been driving those roads. You know, I do know one of the officers was, when he was driving around, said to me, "Doc, we got to talk." So that just put in my brain, you know, maybe we should talk to some of the rank and file police and see what they have to say.
Well, and you know something too, I mean, obviously we're not going to be able to collect that type of data until unless we change. I will say, you know, I'm around the common, I have to drive Jimmy to work, so I'm around the common between 8 and 8:30, picking up 4:30 in that vicinity, so pretty busy traffic time around the common. A lot of people, I don't see a lot of cars parked, and I think you know, and it could be that initial being afraid of change. I mean, I have had some people saying, I hear they're avoiding the common, and that's the last thing you want for businesses. Like, you know, someone said to me, you know, well, we were going to go, my husband wanted me to go to Gunther Tootie's, but I said, nope, I'm going to McDonald's, you know, up on Main Street. She wanted to deal with the common. Now that's also, I mean, how are you going to avoid the common for the rest of your life? But my husband mentioned, just because he's over the years in umpiring softball, different schools locally and whatever, maybe the Taunton Green. Yeah,
that's a good one. Yeah. That's a good one.
He was saying, you know, similar. I mean, the one thing I think that throws off a little bit is, I mean, there's plenty of places. It's not even just the parallel parking. A lot of these places are 1 lane each way. It's the 2 lanes, I think, that create that little bit of, you know, I don't know if anybody drives on the Jamaica Way. You ever drive on the Jamaica Way and you're like saying to yourself, every time I drive on, I'm like, holy crap, I can't believe that there aren't a million accidents here, because you're flying by each other and, you know, this little space. So, you know, it'll be getting used to, but I mean, maybe one of you guys can, you know, I've been to the Taunton Green. I don't frequent it, so I don't know, but he just happened to say that might be something similar. I think there's a lot of, you know, I grew up in Stoughton. Stoughton Center was the worst place. But, you know, you had Route 139, 138, 27, I mean, major routes all coming in, and eventually they had to put up traffic lights, you know, and I'd hate to see anything like that here, because I think, you know, it would ruin the charm of around. And the only other comment maybe is that we're talking about the slowing down, but I've had a couple of people say, it looks like you guys are trying to do 2 separate things. What we've done at the top, I mean, we may want to look back and see if maybe you know, I know we didn't want the traffic to back up down Main Street, but now people just come flying in there, and you know, I don't know if we want to be back with the yield. I know that would probably defeat what we've done, but I think what we've done there has created that busier flow, because people don't stop. So you've got that flow, and I think as the common becomes busier with the new development, that issue is just going to get worse, because, you know, trying to get over to go to South Street now, I mean, I maneuver it pretty well, but as that area gets busier and busier, we're going to run into, you know, I think it's always going to be, something's going to tweak this. You know, once the fire station project happens, that's going to be, you know, something else.
So talking about tweaks, to get us to where we're going to be for the end tweak, can you guys talk a little bit about, you what does, so we've talked about, if you have feedback, go take the survey. It's on the homepage. I saw it out to Foxborough discussion. Chris threw it out there, like, very bravely. And I know I saw it on Uptown Happenings, but the biggest thing, take the survey, especially after the farmer's market. Maybe if you haven't taken the survey yet and you're going to go to the farmer's market, wait, take it then. And then Lance's email is out there. I would tell people, feel free to copy the Board of Selectmen, but we're not compiling them all. Lance is doing that for us so that we'll get that feedback kind of in aggregate. So I think that's the message for now. And then if you guys can let us know, what does the next step look like when you come back? Is it June 8th or is it the meeting? Is it the 15th? It's June 8th. Okay, so we're nearing the end here. What's the next step look like?
So I think our plan is that we're going to reach out to Stephanie and to Ed, along with bringing Lieutenant Fitzgerald back in and bringing the subcommittee back together before that meeting, so that we can have another discussion of the subcommittee with some recommendations. I think looking at, does the parallel parking work? Is that something that the board is going to want to move forward with? And that's something that we're going to look at Stephanie and Ed on for their feedback as far as what we should be doing with the parking. I think there's a lot of agreement on the changes down the Central Street exit area. So I think we have kind of a firm grasp of that is something that'll move forward. We just need to bring something forward as to what that looks like. I'm still hesitant on vertical granite curbing and islands there. I think I've been holding that from the beginning. But that's something that we should talk about within the subcommittee so that we can bring, a recommendation forward to the full board on that June 8th meeting as far as what that looks like. So I think we're going to keep our eyes on it for the next week and a half, 2 weeks. As far as, Stephanie, just to touch on Stephanie's comments, she made a couple. Taunton Green is exactly what I was thinking about. I drove through it a few weeks ago and I wasn't sure where I was at the time. And then as far as people not parking up there haven't been anybody parking on that side of the common for well over a year now, since COVID started. Bank of America's not open. The people that are going into Judy's or to the office building are parking, pretty much in the parking spaces that are in that lot. So it's hard to gauge if people are avoiding the spaces or if they're just haven't been parking there for a year now. So there's no reason for them to park there now. Central Street is always full. Parallel parking on Central Street is always full, and people have figured that out. So I think we need to, take a look at that and make a decision as to whether we want to keep the parallel parking on a temporary basis and keep that going to study that further. And that's the other thing. We can break this up. We can decide to move the Central Street exit forward on a permanent basis, and we can continue with the parallel parking longer if we decide that's what the board wants to do.
Yeah, I think, Chris, just so make it clear, my comment about people not have been parking there, I probably brought that in with people saying they were avoiding the common. I didn't think that was why there was no parking. I just was kind of tying off Ed's, maybe having some data, like are people opening their doors. I just didn't see a lot of parking there yet for us to be able to find out if that's an issue yet or not. I didn't think people were avoiding it. And also the whole Central Street part, that was kind of part of your vision when you hit the top of the common anyhow. Wasn't that, I think I recall, I wasn't on the board then, I think maybe just paying attention.
The north and south end of the common.
So that was part of your vision anyhow.
It was.
Yeah.
Yep. That was always going to be phase 2. We wanted to try them out in separate pieces to make sure that we could clearly identify that the piece up at Main Street worked or didn't work before we lumped them all together. So we know that the piece that we've done works. That's why we moved it forward. Now we wanted to identify the next phase, which is where we are. And I think we can, if we decide that that's going to be permanent, we can mirror that in some fashion over on the Mechanic Cocasset Street side. If it's a pavement treatment, if it's some sort of a rumble strip or something along those lines, we can mirror that. Because I know, people having to be on the inside lane, now it's a short distance to make that outside exit to Mechanic Street, and people are just from the inside lane going straight across, similar to what they used to do going to Central Street. So
Yeah.
I think we can mirror those pretty easily without a big trial like this.
So thank you everyone for coming in. I literally think we could sit here all night and talk about this, but I would encourage everyone to probably take the survey, would be the preferred response, especially if you have a chance to get uptown. Otherwise, email Lance, feel free to copy whoever you see fit. I know Steph and Ed are on the subcommittee, and they are mentioned in the FAQ as well. And then Ed and Steph, if you guys can get back together and report back to us, we'll have more to come on June 8th. But thank you to everyone that sent constructive emails too. We've got quite a few, very, very constructive emails. So thank you to those citizens that have reached out as well.
Thank you.
Great.
All right, so next up again is Paige with the temporary outdoor dining regulations. Thanks, guys.
Oh, yes, hi. This one's a little easier to talk about. So I'd written you all or something last week letting you know about a need to or a desire to change the temporary outdoor dining regulations that the Board of Selectmen has passed. Originally, we had a different deadline just because at the time we did not know what they were going to be using for for deadlines. We have since wanted to try to extend ours. Well, let me back up. Ours was going to be tied to the state of emergency, which meant that our restaurants would have had to close in mid-June. I know that the board didn't probably want to see that happen, so I thought we should follow Executive Order 50, so at least the restaurants got the benefit of the 60 days beyond the state emergency that the governor had. However, since that time, and that's what's in your board docs, but this afternoon, Governor Baker changed things up on us in a very good way. And I saw Bill announced it early on that he has submitted legislation seeking to extend the outdoor dining provisions through the end of November. So I kind of had to go on the fly, and I apologize I don't have anything in writing for you all, but I could read that I would suggest the following under expiration, which is page 7 of 7, letter H on the temporary outdoor dining areas. I would have it say expiration. Temporary outdoor dining permits issued under these regulations shall remain in effect so long as state legislation and/or executive orders allow. Upon expiration of the state's flexible zoning and liquor license program, businesses shall have 2 weeks to remove fixtures for temporary or outdoor dining areas. That's what I came up with to sort of respond to today's announcement, because we don't know that, we assume the legislation will pass, but we don't yet have legislation to reference. So, but I wanted to kind of mention legislation, but I also wanted to mention the executive orders, because at a minimum, we'd like to have them be able to run to the end of the executive order.
So are you looking for that motion tonight, or could this be an action item? You are, okay. All right, I don't know that anyone got that whole thing that quick.
I can read it again, or I also did email it to Christina just now, though. I apologize. I didn't even think about this when I got so excited this afternoon when I heard the announcement, I forgot to think about a motion until tonight when I was just realizing I have to present something and that I needed to think on the fly. So I can would you like me to read it again?
Or do we have it?
What section was it?
H?
Christina, you just put it in there, right?
I haven't put anything in there.
Oh.
Yeah, so I got down part of it, but basically the gist is that it's going to remain in effect so long as the legislation does, and we're going to give businesses 2 weeks after that to clear out their temporary stuff.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you want, I can post it on the screen. Give me 1 minute.
Okay, yeah, Seth has it right up, and he can read it if you post it real time.
I think it was excellent.
Yeah.
Talk about an on-the-fly.
Yeah, it was perfect. I can't write that fast, though.
Yeah, but no, that was excellent, especially with this being an ever-changing, nothing stable yet. But I think it's a good way to encompass whatever changes go on going forward.
I think if you go back to board doc, she's loading it. And while we're waiting for Seth to get that, oh, your email's up for everyone to see on the.
That's okay.
Okay, just making sure that causes me panic.
That's what I was gonna do.
Okay, all right, so.
Sorry about that page.
All right, so here it is. Can you read that? Temporary.
Yeah, don't include the UGG.
Yeah. Can you read that, Seth? Temporary outdoor dining
Yes.
permits issued. Okay.
So as a motion,
As
you
a
want?
motion, so move to,
Oh, okay. Move to temporary.
extend.
Move to extend temporary outdoor dining permits issued under these regulations shall remain in effect so long as state legislature and/or executive orders allow. Upon expiration of the state's flexible zoning and liquor license program, businesses shall have 2 weeks to remove the fixtures from their temporary outdoor dining areas.
Second.
All right, great. Any discussion?
Question, what is the date right, as of now?
Let me go back to my email. Let's see.
It's in November.
It's a November
It's
date.
November 29th.
Yeah, November 29th.
Well, yeah, but that hasn't yet, so.
Hasn't passed
do you
yet,
need-
Right.
But June 15th is the date when the governor's executive order will end, and right now it's 60 days after that.
Yep.
Right.
So this motion allows us the flexibility. If the governor's order changes, this motion will cover it.
Right.
Right.
But not only that, I just want to be clear that our current regulations are not tied to the executive, well, they don't add the 60 days. So they would die. So in Foxborough, the businesses, while the rest of the state would have till August 14th, Foxborough under current regulations would have to end June 22nd. So regardless of what happens with the legislation, this would also protect the businesses to go along with the executive order if the legislation didn't happen. So the earliest would be August 14th, the latest would be November 29th.
Yeah, and basically why I was asking is because, even though everything's opening up, there's still, this is the business I work in. I'm hearing it every day. There are still some people where they're doing so much takeout still. Even though things are opening up, some people are still not comfortable eating indoors. So I think the longer that we can give businesses the opportunity to be outdoors is only a good thing.
And even if people are comfortable, I think some people just prefer it now. So at my work, we always say, like, what's a boomerang and what's a frisbee? So what's changed forever and what's going to bounce back to how it was? And Paige and I have been talking a lot about, we need to look at the zoning and the bylaws, I think, for Foxborough on maybe a more permanent basis. Because a restaurant like the 99 that has no outdoor dining, they have a perfect spot in their parking lot. Do we allow that? So I think this is a piece for the temporary dining, but now I think we need to look more long-term to allow some of these restaurants the flexibility, to be able to offer the outdoor seating that they have on their property and that we've been able to. We just talked about a trial essentially the last year and see that it works. Maybe it's the Commons having a couple tables out on the sidewalk. It was okay.
Yeah.
So I think, Paige, I'd like to continue that conversation with, I think it's you guys and the planning board, and maybe look at what we change on a more permanent basis to allow for some flexibility.
Madam Chair, Paige and I talk about this a lot about, what's it going to look like going into the future, and your points are well taken, that there are a lot of things that have worked really, really well. And there's no reason why we shouldn't look at them as being permanent types of changes. That's only going to add to the business. And I truly believe that this would be a positive thing for the economy. And I think the governor's seeing it, looking at this the same way. To provide an additional incentive for businesses to reopen, but on a slower scale and a comfort level. And I think why November 29th was picked, because at that point, people were pretty much moving inside anyways.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really good step in the right direction. I think he really listened to a lot of his counsel about what's the best move, and I think that's what was reflected in the legislation today.
Yeah.
So we've had a motion, we've had discussion. Are we comfortable kind of moving forward? All right, so all those in favor of the motion as Seth read? All right, great, thank you. I know how many hours and, everything Paige has put into this, so thank you so much for all your work on this.
Thank you, Paige.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paige.
Have a good night.
All right, next up is Bill with the Foxborough State of Emergency discussion. So again, tying into the state of emergency, are we going to rescind that or extend that?
So I'm actually going to kick this one to Mike, right?
Oh, sorry.
So sorry about that, but I do think it is tied into, what the governor's action is at this point, but even that's a state of flux at this point. So, but I'll turn it over to Mike so he can give you a little more information on that.
Sure. A year ago, on March 13th, the governor declared a state of emergency for Massachusetts, And at the next board meeting on March 17th, this board declared a Foxborough state of emergency. That allowed us to put in place some policies that allowed us some flexibility with leave, so the people that were going on needed to quarantine, needed to take care of families, either with school closures, childcare, et cetera. So it afforded that flexibility. The other side of that is that it also it made it management difficult, because we had more people that were changing schedules, that sort of thing. I think we're at a point where Foxborough is in the green, and where the state is taking away the state of emergency on June 15th. I think that we're probably at a point, and I would recommend the board do the same for the town of Foxborough. And we're at that point where things are moving back to normal. We're trying to normalize everything. So my recommendation, our recommendation to the board, is that we go ahead and rescind the Foxborough state of emergency, coinciding with the Massachusetts state of emergency.
And do we have any indication if that date will flex, like some of the others are in flex, Bill? Like, do we want this motion to just read in conjunction with the Massachusetts, or do we want to put this date with it?
So the state of emergency really speaks to actions well beyond those that haven't been addressed already in the legislation.
Okay.
So the legislation was very specific as to those things that would be delayed. I think the regular pieces, though, remove the things that really aren't necessarily to be addressed. So I think that puts us back more into normal mode. Okay. And I think that it's probably best to follow that guidance. I think Mike's recommendation is dead on.
Okay, so Steph, I know Steph had to step up for a minute, so we're just keeping in lockstep with the state of emergency. I think we're ready for a motion on that if you're good. Okay.
Yes, okay.
Yep.
Motion to rescind the Foxborough local state of emergency effective June 15th, 2021.
Second.
Any further discussion? All right, all those in favor? All right, and the next one, this is where I thought you were up, Bill, sorry. The American Recovery Plan use of funds.
Yeah, so thank you, Madam Chair. This is actually, again, one of those things that keeps changing on a daily basis. We did receive something earlier this afternoon indicating how much we are going to receive, and the numbers actually increased a little bit since our original thought, which was, I think we were looking at about 1.8 million originally. Now we're up to 1.9 million, 1,925,797 is the latest number that was given to us by the federal government. So we are, that list came out this afternoon, and that's where we're listing, because interesting enough, Foxborough's population actually increased. And I don't know if that's based upon the most recent census data, but we're actually around 18,399 now in terms of our population. That's why the number went up. So I was a little surprised to see that, but that's the latest information that we got today. So that being said, the other piece of this is the money that's going to come from the county, which I spoke with the county managers last week. There is very positive movement from the county to try and pass the money through to the individual cities and towns, but that has not been finalized yet, and they're still working those details out. But it seems to be support in that direction to do that, so we should see that as well. The question we now have to deal with is what is the best use of the money, and that's the part that's still not clear to us, because it's more general in nature, and things that make sense to us, on a regular, from talking about, well, geez, that was affected by COVID, why wouldn't that be eligible? Kind of surprised us when we started seeing some of the FEMA responses recently about what was eligible, what wasn't. And so we're taking a little bit of a more of a cautious approach here, but by the same token, we still need to be progressive and continue to move forward and try to address some of these things. One of the things that has come to our attention that really is being affected as we speak is the recreation department, because don't forget that recreation's revenues come primarily as a revolving account. So money comes in, money goes out, it pays for all the various programs, and during the past year, of course, their revenues were very, very low. So we don't even have enough money to support the key staff members that should be working in place to put the programs out there. So looking at that as something more of a critical situation, because we do want to get programs started for the summer, particularly for, you know, some of the summer camps, et cetera, that need, that support a lot, number of families in the community. So, and I know that, Renee Tachi, who's been, you know, working very, very hard behind the scenes and only working on a part-time basis to try and keep things going, could use some support in actually trying to get her back in a full-time status. So my recommendation right now is to maybe approach this from a more of an operational impact and address it through a reserve fund transfer, which I would make to the AdCom with the board's support, of course, to try and get this done as soon as possible. I don't have a final number yet, because we literally talked about this today, because we thought maybe we'd get even more information about the use of the money today. And then that would get us through to the end of June, and then by then we should know what the clear direction is and how the money could be used. I do believe that because local revenues have not been impacted, that this would be a support, a replacement of some of those local revenues to address that. So I think we could actually get that done. But again, until I get the clear guidance on it, I'm really reluctant to say yes or no. But at least I think this is clearly an unanticipated impact. I think it would qualify as a reserve fund transfer, and then and I talked to George about that, and we've seen today we talked about that as an option. So I'm just letting everybody know that's what we're looking at. I think the other thing we can talk about and we should think about as a town is, you know, what's the other best uses for that money, and you know, in talking to the other managers from Norfolk County, they're talking about, you know, maybe, you know, stormwater projects, you know, road projects that we can use the money for. We've already addressed a lot of our water and sewer issues, maybe a little more in the water than the sewer, but we've already done a lot of that. So I don't know that we'd be looking to spend money on those things. The other question that comes up is OPEB, and, you know, can we put more money towards that? That's another question that remains unclear to me. You can't use it for pensions, but you can't use it just to, you know, to create stabilization funds, things of that nature. You can't use it for those purposes. So we have to be very careful that we don't end up in that scenario. But OPEB might be one of those qualifying things, and we're looking for clarification on that. Having said that, I'll get into the OPEB discussion in a minute, because with the meals tax, because I did speak with the individual who raised the question about it at a town meeting today. I think I clarified a lot of his concerns, and I think he was pretty grateful for, you know, the information I was able to provide for him. So I'll get into that discussion in a minute. But where we are with the ARP money is that we, you know, this is money to the town, so we want to be careful that we spend it the right way and use it the right way. I know that the school department has need for money in the to replace a couple of the major air conditioning units at the middle school. So that may be something that would qualify as well. And again, using that money is less money that we have to use from free cash, et cetera. So we're looking at that as you know, as another possible use of that. So we'll give you a list once we have that in place, but the one that's most critical in terms of operations is the recreation side, and I think that's something we need to move on right away.
Yeah, and I think this is a really critical time for them with the summer program coming up, and I know a lot of families in town rely on that program, and people are working hard to kind of keep that going, and I think it's a temporary item that we do need to support. And I think the other thing you haven't mentioned, Bill, is, you know, the meetings a few of us were on about this American Recovery Plan, is that the intent around the infrastructure, maybe you did.
Yeah.
A citizen did reach out to me too about PFAS, you know, just something to bring up too. Maybe you can mention that to Chris.
Yeah.
You know, just something to think about.
Yeah.
So.
Sorry, Leah, you said
PFAS is.
Yeah,
It's sort of like a sort of residual plastic that gets into the water source. Fortunately for Foxborough, though, I mean, I think a lot has been made of that, and there are several communities that are in real trouble with this. We're not, really. I mean, we have an impact on one of our wells, of which we rarely use. So, and it's really just it's actually right on the borderline. It's really not even considered to be a serious issue. So I don't think we have as much of a concern there, though Chris, I think Chris is still on. If he wants to address that, he can maybe.
And there was a Globe article actually that you can maybe read, but it's like 20 grains of sand essentially in a swimming pool that.
Yeah.
You know, and some communities are really facing issues with this right now, which it sounds like we're okay, but I just want to bring it up since someone had brought it up to me.
Yep. So just quick, I'll touch on it quick. PFAS is something that's known as a forever chemical. There are, I think the latest count was it's well over 5,000, maybe closer to 10,000 of these chemicals that have been used for decades in waterproofing, Teflon, Gore-Tex, food packaging. It's something that's in almost everything that you, almost everything you buy, and it gets into the ground. One of the biggest things was firefighting foam had this as well. So anybody that had a firefighter training facility in their town, their water resources are in pretty bad shape. Airports, that type of stuff. These are places that have, the Cape has a big issue with it. But our wells we're in okay shape. Mass DEP has put a limit of 20 parts per trillion for the PFAS chemicals. There are 6 of them right now that we're actively testing for. That's across Massachusetts and actually across the United States. EPA has set a guidance at 70 parts per trillion. So Mass has actually gone beyond that and drops down to 20. So we have tested all of our sources, all of our wells. The well up on Route 1, which is an emergency use only well, is above that 20 limit. We do not use that well, and we have no intention to use it. If we decide to turn it on, we'll have to figure out how to treat the PFAS before that can go back online. The other well we have is down well 15, which is down at the Witch Pond treatment plant. That well combined with well 14 is under the 20 parts per trillion limit. So when we get ready to turn those wells back online and that plant back online, we'll have to test, but we expect to be under the 20 parts per trillion. Some of the towns around us, like Bill was saying, are in bad shape. They're getting ready to put in, $10 to $12 million treatment plants specifically for PFAS. The PFAS chemicals do not get treated by the green sand filtration that we have at our 3 treatment plants. It's a completely different process. Most of it is activated carbon. So we're not in a spot where we have to do that. We are trying to figure out where it's been coming from. We expect that the landfill from one of our neighbors on the other side of West Street, is where we're getting it, down at Witch Pond treatment plant. So we're starting to investigate that. We do have a contract with one of our engineering firms to look at that and see where that's coming from and see if there's a way to remedy that. But basically it gets in the ground and it doesn't go away.
Thanks for that, Chris. So I think, in summary, we support, right? Anyone disagree? We supporting recreation and figuring this out kind of short term. And then it sounds like you're going to come back to us.
Exactly.
And you've given us some ideas of where we'll go as far as stormwater and such, but I think you'll come back to us and let us know what your thoughts are once we have some more.
On the other issues. I did have a conversation with the chairman of the AdCom today, as well as the chairman of the Recreation Department, to let them know what I was thinking. So in anticipation of tonight's discussion before the board. So nobody was surprised by this discussion.
Okay. Thank you.
And just to add to the recreation, I mean, I don't know if everyone here is in full support of helping recreation or not, but I did notice that they are continuously advertising for counselors.
Yes, good point.
And I think what's going on is, maybe some of the kids are hitting that, like whether they were able to collect some unemployment and now they don't want to give up the extra money they're getting, or whether they've just moved on to other places. But I think from what I've heard that Deb herself and possibly Renee will almost be like counselors this year.
They need more counselors. They can even open more slots. I don't want to misspeak. I think last I heard, if there was more, they could potentially open more slots. So if anyone has someone who's in that age, the posting is still online, right, Mike? They can go.
It is, and I'm going to speak a little bit about that one in detail.
And because I think from what I'm hearing is they're going to have to be like almost like hands-on counselors too. Obviously they're always busy with making sure everything's right, but it may be the issue of actually needing another body there for camp to run the way it's supposed to. And I think we all know, whether we've had kids that have gone through there, I mean, our rec department is phenomenal, and unfortunately, just like every other town, they've been, you know, the last year has been, you just can't, you know, and we've been lucky that they've really been self-supporting, other than a couple of salaries, and, you know,
It's one
I mean, there's
salary.
nothing.
One salary.
One salary, that's
Yeah,
it.
one
And there's- so
salary.
there's
That's
nothing-
our issue here that we need to solve for on the other
Yeah,
one. So
fortunately,
Yeah.
that's the only one we have to deal with, so
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have to deal with.
Yeah, just
the
a
other-
little tidbit else, you know, if anyone else
Yeah.
is, you know, on the fence on it, you know, it's, yeah, I think it would be money, if we can, I think it would be money well spent. if
do
we
you
can.
have the direction you need from the board to move
I
forward
think
with
so,
that?
yeah.
Okay,
I
all
think
right,
so.
great.
So there's no objection, I just want to make sure there was no surprises there, so.
Okay, great. You two are up next, whatever order you want to go in.
All right, so go ahead, Mike, I'll follow you on this one.
Okay, I've got 6 updates I'd like to give to the board, and I'll start with the goals, just to follow right on, you know, the discussion you had earlier. And so I suggest that you might consider, you know, as the, you know, Madam Chairman said, get your inputs to me. And I suggest maybe June 1st would be a week from today, if you can think of that as a date to get those to me.
Our board goals.
The board goals.
Okay, yep.
Yep. And then I can accumulate those, bring them back to the following meeting. And I think by getting them, you know, think about getting them to me within a week, that helps Bill to start formulating, even though your goals won't be, you know, voted on or decided yet, at least it can give him another week heads up to, so that he can align his goals with you know, what it looks like the board's goals will be. And then on the 8th, Bill and I can come back to you, at least with your list of here's everything you sent in, so that you can go ahead and vote your goals, and then Bill will already have had a head start on you know, working on his goals that will align within or nested within what the board has decided for the town. And unless there are drastic changes from the input that you've sent me, you know, he may be prepared then or at your following meeting.
Okay, great.
To do the board goals. And again, those buckets that you reviewed earlier were 1, financial, 2, communications and engagement, 3, business and economic development, and 4, town operations. It sounds like that's what you want to go with again this year. That seems to work out well. So I look forward to receiving all your input, and I'll you know, accumulate that for you. Next is, you know, this is the time of year that we do evaluations. You know, it starts with Bill's now, and then every other employee in town, you know, from myself on down to our brand new, you know, hired employees get evaluated, and those self-evaluations will be going to all of their supervisors by June 2nd, and then they'll be coming back, you know, to the HR department following that. And that's something that's really important to us. We use that as a developmental tool to keep improving our organization by improving each and every employee with constructive feedback. Recruitments, we have a number going on right now. So we have, and you'll see them on the town website. You can go to the HR page, and it's the very top clickable thing, job opportunities, and there will be a button put onto the front page of the website. I told you that was going to happen before. It hasn't happened yet, but that will get there. So they have 2 places that people can go to easily find what we're advertising. The jobs that we're currently recruiting for are benefits administrator and procurement administrator. Those are the 2 positions I briefed you on at your last meeting. Chief assessor. So our chief assessor will be retiring this summer, and we're looking for her successor. We're also advertising for an administrative assistant in the finance department. That's a position that is already there. It's already funded, and it had been titled assessor, but we want to spread that across not just assessor, but when there's opportunities for, like, not the busiest season, to provide support in other areas within that department. And again, if I could just back up to the benefits at procurement administrators, that's also not new money, not new positions. That's actually, as I mentioned at your last meeting, that's restructuring with money that's already there to more fully meet the needs of that department and the town. Next one is we do have an opening that I've just posted last Friday for the payroll administrator. So our last payroll administrator has moved on, and so we're looking for a succession there. And then the last one, as was just mentioned, is recreation counselors. So that's something that I have, vowed to the recreation staff that I and Sarah will be working with them. We'll be involved in their interviews as well as their getting the word out. And that stuff will be going out on social media. It's already up on the website. It's time that we probably need to go beyond the borders of Foxborough, because at some point you reach capacity, and I think that's where we are. And there are many towns that are going to be struggling with filling this need, but this is something that we think is critically important as families look to get their children outdoors, out gathering with people, and so this is really an important function to us. Memorial Day. It goes throughout this coming weekend, and it starts this Friday morning at 11 a.m. up at Patriot Place at the plaza adjacent to the Red Robin. The Patriot Place and the Patriots Organization, or the Craft Sports and Entertainment Organization, are hosting this, and our Director of Veteran Services is involved and part of that program up there. Bill and I will be attending, and that's open to the public. So we look forward to that. And there'll be something posted on our website and social media with details on that. Into that evening, which is this Friday evening, the memorial squares will be decorated as they always are. And then all the veteran graves within the town will be decorated with a flag. And then moving to Monday morning, while we don't have a parade, because this change has happened so quickly, what we do have is the tradition that always goes on, which is at 7:30 in the morning, the Scouts and the VFW and Legion members will be going and visiting the graves, each of the cemeteries, including East Foxborough and some of the outlying historical graves, because we do have veterans and throughout those. And then they'll lay the wreaths on the common. Again, no parade, but they'll be laying the wreaths on the common as usual. And then afterwards, I understand there's something going on at the VFW. I don't have the time or details on that, but I'm sure that'll be put out. Two more updates. So next Tuesday, when people return from Memorial Day weekend, we know that the masks can go away, that the gathering sizes, has gone away. All these restrictions that we've been under are pretty much going away. So what people can expect, as Bill alluded to earlier this evening, was that when they come to town hall, and Sarah put this, best in a meeting this morning. If you're fully vaccinated, we look forward to seeing your smile. If you're not yet vaccinated, we can wait a little longer. And I think that kind of says it all. Any questions? And that's public and employees. And last thing, as we do open up meetings, size, all those sort of things. One of the huge benefits that we have had during this, and Leah, you mentioned this a little earlier, is that we've been able to watch and participate in government more fully than we ever have before, because we don't just have school committee and board of selectmen televised. We've got everything, through Zoom televised, and the folks that have been pivotal in making this happen are the folks at Foxborough Cable Access TV. Mike Weber and Paul Beck, who's with us here today back in the booth. They've been phenomenal, along with the rest of the staff and volunteers at Cable Access. And when former chairman Mark Elfman, a while back when he was still the chair, we talked about how we're going to recognize them. And we are going to do that with a, with a plaque and a little ceremony. And now things are opening up, we can do that. So we are going to follow through on that, Mark. Bill and you and I talked about it, and Christina. And so we do want to make the announcement that the work you have done in pulling our government together has been phenomenal, and it's fully appreciated. And I mention that because also there's going to be a strain on their resources as we try to get more and more people into rooms. So we're going to, work on scheduling those things, because it won't be just meetings from home. It's going to be in the building, which means they've got to be in the booth in a number of different buildings. So that's all I've got for you tonight. So thank you.
So my quick question.
Yes.
Two of the positions, benefits and payroll.
Yes.
Any thought of combining those and hiring one person?
So we did actually look at that, and they're very different roles. And so those two roles in particular come on the recommendation of our town auditor. And so we've been getting good reviews. We're AAA bond rated, and a number of years back, my position was actually established as part of the S&P rating process, because they said you really need to bolster up your management, your upper management on the town side. They had done that on the school side, and they needed that. These are two areas that they've recommended to us, not as a hit, but as just to continue with where you're going. You need to do this. And one of those very important things is you must keep treasury and accounting side very separate. And so the benefits position is a treasurer's position, and the procurement position is an accounting position. So those actually must be separate positions. So it's not like the person can do, half this day and half the other day, or something like that.
Yeah, well, why I was asking is basically that's what my husband's position is at the school. And so he's one person, years ago when we had a discussion with Randy, he was talking about giving us a description of what people were doing at town hall. And, he kept mentioning 700 plus, almost 800, and then at the end of it, I said, you do realize though 500 of that 700 are getting done over there by one person. So, that's why I ask. I mean, just with the year we've had, I just, I know last year we decided no new positions. With these people also come 2 sets of benefits, 2 insurances. So, I would just like to see us, just try to make sure that we're not, I know Jimmy does payroll benefits for 500 people over there at the school side, which is twice as many people on the town side.
I can appreciate that, and actually give you a little bit of feedback on the thought that went into this. So again, these are not new positions, they are new positions, but not new money. So we took a look at what does the town need and what does the town not need. And we had a position created that was IT business systems analyst. And that was a position that was fully funded by the town, and it was split between the school and town. And it was actually a critical position at that time when we implementing a lot of IT systems. And it's something, we have those systems for the most part implemented at this point. The stuff that we're going to be bringing on is more cloud-based. And so you saw ClearGov. That was something that, it's cloud-based, so that, somebody here was able to implement that. The HR software, cloud-based, I was able to implement that. So our need is shifted from what was a position that was twice the price, including benefits, of these 2 positions that I'm talking about now. So our need really is, we feel strongly that we should be following the recommendations of our auditors in being solid and financially sound, and definitely keeping the procurement and the accounting side procurement and the treasury and the benefits part separate.
Yeah.
And if I could just make, I understand where you're coming from, and I don't have the background of it, but just throwing out ideas, like I get they're in, treasury and accounting, but if we took them out of there and put them in and built up a little bit of a human resources group, you don't have that treasury and accounting issue if they're sitting in HR. And I know some of it is a finance function. I kind of understand how it works, but, just a thought to think about as it moves forward, because, you know, HR is a really critical function.
Well, those positions will continue to work with HR.
Right, so I'm saying, if the problem is we need to keep accounting and treasury separate, if these people sit in HR, or one person sits in HR and they do both those functions, you know, just a thought, I don't know.
Sure.
Yeah, it just kind of feels like payroll, I mean, so Jimmy's the payroll manager, but with his position, he deals all the benefits. When you're gonna change your insurance, you know, when you had the health fair, I mean, that all came under him. So when you're gonna retire, the same person, you know, he pays the school department, and then when you're gonna retire, you come in and sit with him, and he goes over all the numbers with you and does your paperwork for retirement, as well as any health changes, add-ons, you know, going out. So it's all, I understand what you're saying. Right now, you have people in 2 different departments, but like what Lee's saying, I really think this is really, they shouldn't be in 2 different departments. It's all.
It is under one. It is under
HR.
one roof. It's all under one roof. But it's all. But and I think the thinking here was that, you know, we have, for years we have sort of struggled with the notion of, you know, what's the best way to handle procurement, and you know, and a lot of guidance doesn't happen because there just isn't. It isn't anybody's responsibility.
Well,
other
you're
than
the
mine.
chief, you're the chief procurement officer
other being
of
the chief procurement
by the
officer,
Town
right?
Manager Act.
Right. So exactly. So but I ultimately approve everything, but the in terms of providing daily guidance on, you know, compliance and all that stuff, it's done through accounting right now. But then, you know, ultimately, so then it comes to me as the final approver of those things.
Yeah.
So, but I think what's happened is that it's been an add-on of the function for those positions, but without really, so it's done, but it's not done at the full level that it should be done. So I think that's the concern that the auditors have had, is that, look, you know, you should really spend some, you should have a focus, attention on that. The benefit side is, we do a lot of that on the townwide basis, so it's not, and you know, we actually, through Treasury, Paula does a lot of that processing for everyone, and so I think that's, and they handle the whole insurance program through Maya. It goes through her office.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think there's been very little attention, other than falling on her shoulders all the time, to doing all that work. She has some help in the assistant treasurer, but quite honestly, it's a load, and it's really been a strain.
I think I agree. I think, honestly, I think Paula should be doing any of that stuff. That's,
right.
You know, but
Exactly.
My thought process, I think one person could, well, just based on living with the person that does it for 500 for twice as many people on the.
Yeah, I don't think it's as simplistic as you've just described it, though, Stephanie. And in fairness, I think it would be beneficial for you to talk to Marie and to George directly about that, because they can better describe for you, even Mike and I, the kind of complexities that they're dealing with on their end that could even go well beyond what Jimmy does. So I think.
Oh yeah, I just, what I heard was a payroll person.
Yeah.
And a benefits person.
Right.
So what happens is that the payroll from the school.
Yeah.
And the benefits from the school, I mean, Jimmy does a great job, no doubt. You ask anybody around town.
Right.
That stuff all comes here, though.
Yeah.
And when the auditors come here to audit the town, they come here.
Right.
Yeah.
This is where it actually
But
happens.
I mean, it's all done on their end and comes up to
I
be
understand.
sent out.
Right, I understand.
Yeah.
But when,
Yeah, no, it was just a question, just trying to not add new positions, that's, you know, or to.
So
have
what we do is
less
we took
positions.
existing dollars and restructured them to the right way that we've been advised to do it. So we're not creating new positions. I want that to be 100% clear.
No.
We're
But you know
taking,
something? If you
we're
could
taking
make
existing
this
dollars.
one position, then we save dollars. I understand what you're saying, we're not going above, but with the year we just had, would there
But
be
I think
any
the
harm in saving dollars, you know?
The point that we were trying to make, though, is that you can be penny wise and pound foolish, because I think if we're doing it the right way as recommended to us, not by these are outsiders telling us that what they're seeing and what we should be doing a better job at. That's why we're here. We wouldn't even get to that point if we didn't see that.
Okay.
I wanted to say one other thing, but Selectman Ferguson wanted to say something.
Oh, so I just wanted to add some context, and I think what the auditors are concerned about in this instance is managing risk. And so what goes along with managing risk is separation of duties. So you have three things associated with assets. It's the people who can control the assets in terms of approving, moving assets in or buying new items. There's the record keeping and there's the physical control. So the record keeping is the accounting, the control is the treasury. And to minimize risk of loss or misappropriation, you need to have those three things separate. I think that's what we're getting at. That's exactly right. Accounting and treasury are separate for that reason.
That's exactly it. And the other thing is we learned the hard way a couple of years ago why it's so important to have succession and crossover training and multifunction, or and we've worked really hard over the last 2.5 years to actually recover from that. And so right now, even though our payroll administrator has moved on, we're still doing payroll this week. That's because we have somebody else that's trained in doing that and able to do it. So the new benefits administrator, that's really a finance position because they're going to be the backup to the payroll. So we just need that. We don't have to have two people to do every job, but we do need people that are trained to every, whether it's
step in when needed.
An illness, a departure, or what have you. Because we learned a very expensive, hard lesson when we lost people that were the key holders for certain skills and experience.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay. You're welcome.
Okay.
I think we're good.
All right.
Was that your last item? I think you said you had two more.
That's it?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Mike. So just a couple things. Some really an important announcement to make is that Mike Kelleher, the fire chief, was basically came to me the other day and said that I just been appointed as one of the members of the Southeastern Mass Homeland Security Council, which is he's one of 4 fire chiefs in that part of the state to be named to that committee. So congratulations to Mike for again representing the community so well, and also not only the community but also representing his profession and what he does so well for this community. And some really good news to report too is that on the health insurance side of things, we're pleased to announce that we were able to, through Maya has notified us, and this is something that I actually had participated in earlier as a member of the Maya board, was that we're going to actually give our employees a 1-month premium holiday, which if anybody knows what that is, that means that the employees and the town will not have to pay health insurance premiums for a whole month. The reason is because this past year during COVID, there were a lot of elective surgeries that weren't performed and a lot of hospital stays that were shortened because of COVID situations. So the cost of providing health insurance and health insurance coverage has gone down during the past year. So we do see this as being a temporary measure, and the way the Maya board actually approached this was actually very strategic. They said we're going to continue to, continue with our normal cost of living adjustments or our cost adjustments doing business as we go forward. But if in fact we exceed that amount, we're going to give the money back, and it's because we see it's only as a temporary measure. Because next year, we think that the year will be one that will be a full recovery year, and that'll be one that'll actually impact the cost in another way. So I think we've done a good thing by providing temporary savings to the town and to the employees. But by the same token, we protected ourselves against the long-term impacts of the cost that we're going to probably see over the next year. But it is great news for the employees, especially seeing that you won't have to pay health insurance for out of 2 paychecks during the month of June. And that goes to the school department as well as the town. So it's really good news.
Yeah, I think the virtual appointments were for the year as well. I mean, they can't bill out the same amount of money, so.
Yeah,
like
the cost impact has gone down in that respect. Hopefully, and some of that will carry over, but I do think you'll see an impact over the course of the next year.
Yeah.
Bill, did you want to talk about the dollar savings for like an average family plan as well as the savings for the town?
You're probably looking at a savings somewhere in the order of a family plan of somewhere around about $500 a month for employees and employees themselves. And then on top of that, the town will actually realize The combined, we had another health insurance holiday in September of the same fiscal year, so we're going to save about $1.1 million in this upcoming year. That's the town's share of that cost. So that's really good news for us. That money will flow right into free cash for next year, so that'll help our situation on that end as well. So it's so thank you, Mike, for raising that. The other thing that, and this flows into the, an update that the board had for old business tonight, the meals tax discussion. I just wanted to let everybody know that I did speak personally with Brian Quinn today. I spoke to him. He had reached out and expressed a concern about the meals tax use, and I was able to explain to him how that worked during the past year. So we didn't actually miss 2 payments, contrary to what may have been understood. We missed 1 payment this past year, but we actually delayed that payment because we did make the payment for 2020, for fiscal year 2020. We didn't make the payment for fiscal 21, and that was by design. In fact, we talked about here in this very room back in the spring of 2020 last year, saying that we would delay it because we didn't know how much we were going to collect on the meals tax. So what's happened, and the question had been raised at town meeting, okay, what's going to happen to the money? Well, the answer is the money we still don't know what the final number is for 2021. So, but whatever that number is, and it could be anywhere from $500,000 to $700,000, we think, in that range. Whatever that money is, we will turn around and then look to expend that money back in the fall towards OPEB or a portion towards roads. And we said that we would commit to doing that because that's the proper use of the money. We also learned that the policy, there is a policy that actually, it's in the financial policies actually, where that's addressed, that we would do that. But it's not addressed in terms of the road piece, and that was something that I think was made as a commitment by the former town manager, the one that preceded me, who indicated that he would do that as a commitment, but there was nothing in the minutes nor in the motion at town meeting that reflects that. So at some point, that's another policy consideration that this board should look at, if that's the case going forward, because that's going to change, because our roads are starting to really improve to the point where we don't need to make the same level of investment. But we do need to do sidewalks, and we still need to look at an ongoing program. Another thing that was suggested to me, what really makes sense to me, is that you would take and create like a stabilization fund for roads, where money would go into that every year, and then draw upon that when we needed it to try and continuously improve the roads throughout the course of the year, in addition to the money we get from Chapter 90. So I think that's a really good thought, and I think it's a good policy discussion to have for the board. But on the OPEB side, that was addressed in our financial policies, and so we are trying to commit to that. We probably won't make the ARC payment this year, but again, our investment side, which is again an unrealized return, which Leah pointed out to me,
Yes,
it's an unrealized return, but it is actually a very good return for the past few years. We picked up about a couple $1 million in terms of investment return. So, but that's a good thing. But we want to try and get back to the full payment ARC. And so we didn't make a commitment again for 2022, but we'll do the same exact thing next spring. All right, so that is, once we know what the number is, and we'll know after June 30th what that number is, we'll turn around and then make a commitment to payment, and then we'll get back on schedule for doing it on a regular basis. I think what threw Brian off was the fact that there used to be an article in the town meeting warrant that used to promote to expend the money for that purpose. You may recall that we actually, a couple of years ago, and I think, Seth, you were the chairman of the committee of the AdCom, and we actually moved it into the budget and made it a budget commitment, but we didn't. We zeroed it out for this year, and we didn't put a number against it for next year as well. But we are going to continuously make those payments based upon what we actually collect. All right, so the money shouldn't flow into any. It didn't go anywhere but the intended use.
And can I just, in summary, so from what I'm understanding, because this has been another hot button item like the common recently, so it's everyone's intention to take money that's collected and put it into OPEB or roads.
That's right.
We did find that there seems to be a lack of policy around this particular situation that happened this year. However, no one's intention is to use this as a loophole to not do it.
That's exactly
right. The intention here is now, okay, we've discovered no one could have planned for this situation and scenario.
Right.
Now we need to clean up the language to reflect what the intent of the town was at the time that it was passed. So. Right. I think for me, those are the takeaways, and then I think
I agree.
The third one is just the questions that were raised on town meeting floor have been answered. And I will check in with Mr. Quinn tomorrow to just make sure that he's satisfied with the response, so.
Yeah, we even went so far as to show him how the payments were made, when they were made. And just for the edification of everyone who's listening, we don't make the full payment on any one date. We actually do a little bit of dollar cost averaging, so we make the payment at different points throughout the year, so that we're getting the best return on the investment. So we don't put the whole chunk in. That could be a time when the market's at a high point and you're buying money at a higher rate, whereas opposed to buying at a lower point where you can get a bigger return on the final investment. So I think that's.
Also, Bill, does the meals tax like come in quarterly?
It does come in quarterly. So we try and.
So we don't have it all. Either you would, either you would save it to the end and do it, but doing what you guys doing is a much
it's actually
better way to do it.
It's a better financial approach to dealing with that.
So go ahead.
Sorry,
go ahead.
So two things maybe just to throw out there, so if we do have another discussion at some point, or just in case we don't decide to have a discussion, can we find out, one thing, I was having a conversation with somebody, are we allowed just to make that payment? So at town meeting, it was voted not to, it wasn't in the budget.
Right.
So in order for us to make the payment, do we have to go back to town meeting?
You would, yeah, you would go back to town meeting.
So that might be something we want if we're going to have a special town meeting in the fall.
That's right, that's the plan.
Yeah,
that's the plan.
okay. And the second thing is, if you look on that policy that the Board of Selectmen in 2011 signed off on the financial policy, it actually says that payment is to be made, and if the meals tax don't cover it, it's supposed to be made with other monies. It says that payment is supposed to be made, regardless of whether it's...
I'm aware of that, but I think that's a reality of the situation we're in right now.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
so we really, and I agree with you, Stephanie, that's what it says.
Yeah,
and so
it's an odd year.
Right.
I'm sure when that was signed, no one anticipated, things were going good. We're taking all this money in, but I mean, technically, that payment was supposed to be made. And so I don't know if we have to come up with some language to say, unless.
Unless by a vote of the board or something like that, that we do something different. But I think that would be better to have that because, clearly there was no intention to do anything but the right thing here. So everybody was trying to do given the circumstances. So I do think, though, that this is what if you see these situations that nobody anticipated when that language was done. So I think that we were in that situation this past year. So we did the best we could given the circumstances.
Exactly.
Seth, did you have a comment?
I was just asking you, did you mention ARC payment?
Yeah, the ARC payment. That's the annual required contribution.
So it's different than OPEB, right?
That's right. Well, that is OPEB.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, it is. The ARC, the annual required contribution, is the amount that try and get you to the point where you can actually sustain and actually retire the debt earlier. So at the earliest stage possible. So it is interesting to note, though, that when that policy was written, it said that the retirement, the annual required contribution, if we were able to achieve that, we would retire that debt in 2038. We're now at an estimate of 2035. So we've actually made progress on that regardless. Now, I haven't seen the latest actuarial analysis, but I'm hoping that in fact, given the fact that we've had pretty good year investment-wise, that could actually help our situation as well. But I
thought it was funny when I read it and saw 38. For some reason in my head, Randy's voice at that table, 3 years of AdCom, right, Seth? Yeah. 32, 32, 32.
Well, that's for the pension. The pension side.
Okay.
The pension side.
And the other post-retirement employee benefits is what OPEB stands for.
So they're two different things.
I had 32 in my head.
So the good news on that is that, based on the report I just saw from Norfolk County, is that they're expecting that to be retired by 2031. So we're making progress on that front. So theoretically, what could happen is that once we pay off the pension, the amount that we've been paying towards the pension could then be put towards OPEB, and we could conceivably retire the OPEB obligation even earlier than 2035. So we could be maybe 2033 potentially, if that's the case. So that's a good strategy to have.
So as far as next steps, could we get this on the next meeting to have a draft of what we think the policy should be? So
sure, to update the policy. I do think it's not...
I don't want to wait until before a special town meeting. Like, I'd rather kind of hammer this out now while it's fresh, and then we're ready to go.
So I think there are really two issues. One is to update the existing policy, and two is to take a look at what the policy should be towards roads. And it's really what's not clear to me, it remains a question mark, is what's the contribution towards each? And then I think it's something that should be a discussion that occurs at this level, perhaps with you know, some discussion with the advisory committee on that as well, to make sure that we all agree as to what that split should be. I mean, we want to make the arc if we can, but if that means if we make the arc, then what is the other contribution going to be towards roads? Because at the end of the day, you know, you don't want to keep, you know, pulling from other resources to make those payments. You got to be clear about what, you know, we have needs on both sides.
Bill, do you think that we need to, maybe would be part of the, you know, whatever we draw up for a special town meeting, do we need, is it better that that money does not go to free cash though? It actually goes into some type of reserve? You know, why I'm saying is because I think that money sitting there, then I think gives us a, you know, even though we know it'll be coming out, you know, it's kind of is deceiving how much money is really in free cash. Because we know,
well, it'll be, we actually talked about the way to separate that, so I'm not that concerned about that part of it, because I do think
that's another thing that we think we now need to look at too.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. So we just, but it's not something that we anticipate that's going to be an issue that we have to address. Okay.
All right.
And then the other question is, you know, how much free cash you're going to actually have, you know, at the end of the year. If you make all those commitments, you have to be careful about that. So, all right. All right. So I talked about the reserve fund transfer, and then finally was the Memorial Day service that Ally will be doing. It's going to be somewhat of a limited service this year. I know that we talked about that earlier tonight. So there are really two. They're planning to do the two cemeteries in East Foxborough, then heading over to the VFW. The cable access will show the roll call of veterans that we lost in May from May to May of this current calendar year. So it'll be from the veterans from 2020 to 21, May of 2021. So that is the extent of the celebration this year, and the services this year. We do expect to be back to fully having a Memorial Day service next year, along with a Founders Day celebration and all the things that go with that, heading into 2022. Okay?
We hope.
We hope. And if has anybody seen the new light that we're working for on the Common? Has that seen it? There's a brighter light that's on the post. We think we finally agreed on what the light should look like. We've elicited the help of Jack Altaletta on that discussion, and we've been working on one for a little while. We finally think we got the right one, and we think that we can finally move forward on that construction and getting that going this year, and we get that finished by the fall. That's our plan. All right.
All right. So Selectmen's update. I listed a couple things here for everyone to see. We are getting town-issued Selectmen email addresses, and I know just because we talked about it after Bill, Mike, and I actually went to a training. I don't know if any of you guys caught it. On code of conduct, and then there they brought up how really selectmen should have town-issued emails for record requests. And I did look at a bunch of towns around us, and they did. So that's something that we're putting in place, and they'll be updated online when it's all ready to go. We may just have to all sign a policy, you know, that we won't do anything silly or stupid with our town email address. So I think we can all be trusted there. Mm-hmm. So that's more to come. Farmers market starting May 27th, and again, tying into if you are up there and you have some feedback, please fill out the survey on the Common. And then we already hit the meals tax. And then if you don't mind, I think just a couple things that I wrote down that I want to make sure that we all agree upon as we kind of leave the meeting with like to-dos and parking lot items that we had talked about. So longer term, I think we need to put outdoor dining on our like to-do list as we check out, you know, looking at that. And then continuation of televised meetings that will wrap into the communications plan. Something Bill and I had talked about shorter term is scheduling a budget review meeting for June with like maybe the AgCom chair. We can invite Frank and Bob, you know, someone from the Board of Selectmen, and see, you know, I think every year, like there's one or two things I can think of that we can, you know, maybe do different or just document. So doing that while it's fresh on everyone's mind. And then the last to do coming out of the meeting is just an email to the chairs on use of the gala meeting room and make sure everyone understands and is on the same page there if they don't watch our meetings. Did anyone else have anything else or Selectmen's update to add?
I had one thing I just wanted to tell everybody. Some of you might have already seen it, but Jury Love reached out to me again today, and I just thought it would be just a feel-good story to share. Ryan and I were noticed as the good neighbors this last week for Partners in Patriotism. We were actually traveling down 106 to head to Target, and a mother duck and 6 ducklings were following her. They got to the other side. 2 ducklings got up, 4 of them didn't. Just wandering down. Brian and I just decided to stop, see if we can do anything. 2 of them went down a drain. And so we were looking at each other like, we can't just drive away. So we called the Mansfield Police Fire Department. They came out, some DPW guys came out. We got the grate up, and we got one of the firemen actually hopped down into the drain, past Brian and I, the ducklings. And so I just want to, you know, from our neighbors next door, you know, Ryan and I are getting all this little bit of credit, but the real people who were able to get the grade up and get the, you know, was the Mansfield Fire Department and DPW. While I know if it had happened here in Foxborough, I'm sure the result would have been the same way. We all know how much the firemen and DPW police are willing to chip in, and so one of the DPW guys said to me, "This is my second duckling rescue." And I said, "Really?" I thought he meant like recently, and he said 28 years ago. And I said, "Oh." And so lo and behold, the first rescue was Deb Giardino and 2 of her children in Mansfield.
Oh, wow.
You know, Deb, when Deb saw the story, she said, "That happened to me and my kids before." And I said, "In Mansfield?" She said, "Oh yeah, they were little." And I said, "Like 28 years ago?" She said, "Yeah." And I said, "I think we have the same gentleman help us." So anyhow, just, you know, kudos to, you know, our neighbors next door. It was, Ryan and I felt great to, even though it was just ducklings, it was a good story. I think Jury is she picked it up somewhere too, and so, you know, I don't pat myself on the back very often, but Ryan and I were proud of ourselves when we left, and you know, we're animal lovers, and as a mom, it was like, you know, whether it was your baby or ducklings, it felt like to help another mom. So anyhow, it was just kind of a feel-good story.
That's a nice note to end the meeting on.
Yeah.
And, you know, there are 2 action items posted, but we're going to push those to next meeting. So just in case anyone's keeping tally on our action items, they're going to move to next week. I think that's it, Seth. Last motion of the day, which you don't have in board docs, but.
I motion to adjourn.
Second.
You got it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Good night, everyone. Thank you.